Please rise for invocation by Reverend Melissa Franz of Daytona Beach Drive-In Christian Church, and will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Before you start, Reverend, I just wanted to make an announcement that unfortunately today in the city of Port Orange we lost what I would describe as someone who's been an icon in our city, serving our community for over 40 years. Mary Whitmire passed away today at the age of 101. We shall be so blessed. She is a volunteer that many of you have gotten to know, and many of you have seen us praise her and seen her serving in this community for over 40 years with our police department volunteer program. So I would just ask tonight, also as we hear these words, that you keep Mary and her family in your thoughts and prayers tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let us pause in prayer and acknowledge the weight of this moment. We especially remember Mary's family tonight. As a city who loves her and thanks her for her service, we give thanks that she is enjoying her crown today. We gather in a city shaped by resilience and by pain. Twice major flooding has upended lives, and the frustration is very real, and the call to respond is urgent. But Lord, we give thanks for all who have worked to restore what was lost and to prevent future harm, for those offering solutions, rebuilding trust, and guiding recovery. As we consider hurricane recovery funding, park improvements, and safety for pedestrians and cyclists, may we act with clarity and care. As we monitor wetlands and reclaim lakes, may we honor the land that sustains us. As we review fair wage agreements with those who serve and protect this city, may we uphold dignity and justice. And as we prepare for future storms, may the choices of this council reflect foresight, compassion, and shared responsibility. May this council and all our city leaders listen deeply to one another and to the community, and respond not just with policy, but with action and empathy. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilman Foley?
Here.
Councilman Gipper?
Here.
Councilman Green?
Here.
Vice Mayor Brooks?
Here.
Mayor Stillman?
Here. All of us here tonight. All right. Item 4, public comments on consent agenda items only. Any public comments tonight on consent agenda items only? All right. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items. Don't everybody jump in at one time.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and move to approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Gipper?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Stillman?
Yes. Consent agenda item passes 5-0. Bringing us to public participation non-agenda items. How about we hear from Cameron tonight from the Art House? How are you? Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman, staff. Thank you for letting me present tonight. This is just a small little update for you. We're still waiting to be scheduled for our annual update for you guys. I do want to brag a little bit about our summer camp program. It has come to a close, successful close. 9 weeks of camp, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, each a different theme. Over 543 students. 4,286 works of art walked out the door. We retained between 600 and 700 works of art, we're still counting, for the exhibit this Friday night. We ask that please come and take a look at some of this amazing artwork that these kids have created, ages 5 to 16. They've done a wonderful job, and I kind of told them that maybe some of our really important superstars in our governing body for Port Orange will show up. They're very excited to show off their work. Thank you very much for being given the opportunity to serve the community and for calling our home Florida, Port Orange, Florida. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And can you just make sure, Cameron, that our PIO has a copy of this?
Absolutely.
And you can share that on our city webpage if we already haven't done, or our Facebook
Absolutely.
page if
We would
haven't.
love that. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Kurtz. Yorktown Boulevard vandalism. It's actually on my comments for tonight as well.
Oh,
so
yay.
Go right ahead, introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Donna Kurtz, and I'm the president of the Oak Brook HOA. I'm here tonight requesting help from the city regarding the ongoing damage to the city right-of-way along Yorktown Boulevard, starting at Hawthorne Village Apartments and heading north to Horizon Elementary. I've lived in Oak Brook for over 17 years, and this damage has been going on for many years, however, not to the extent that it is currently happening. The damage that occurred sometime overnight on July 17th was the worst it's ever been. Since then, we've had at least 4 more incidents in the same area and 1 further north. Sometime overnight this past weekend, even more damage was done. On July 18th, I went to the SeeClickFix website to request the city fill in those deep ruts as they had done once prior, and was, was told that Tom DiUlio had denied that request. I appealed the decision, received a phone call from Chip Kent, and he said he would try to help us. And I never heard back from him, so I emailed Sean Gepfert and received no reply. The last Monday, I emailed Wayne Clark and received a reply from Robin Fenwick stating that this was an ongoing issue in Port Orange and to call the police. When I did call the police after a similar incident last year, I was met with the response of, "Why do you care? It's not your property." So I was not inclined to call the police. Also, the residents have let me know that they've heard vehicles spinning their wheels out there around 2 to 3 a.m., and therefore by the time police were to be called, the offender would be long gone. After the incident this past weekend, I did call the police Saturday morning after a neighbor let me know about the latest damage, as he had followed the mud trail to a home in our neighborhood and found a truck with mud all over the side. I advised the responding officer of this, and he told me if the truck owner did not admit to the damage, nothing could be done. He also stated the damaged area was city property and it wasn't Oak Brook's responsibility to fix. I requested a call back from the officer after he made contact with the resident and did not receive one. Our community landscaper maintains our common areas on Wednesdays, therefore this mess will remain until he can at the most attempt to blow up all the debris from the sidewalk. The dirt and mud on the sidewalks could be dangerous to school children from the apartments riding their bikes along Yorktown to Horizon, as it can be very slippery with all the rain we've had lately. Our community landscaper works very hard to maintain Oak Brook, and the area he does maintain along Yorktown is meticulous. This vandalism has caused damage to the irrigation system along the right-of-way. What I'm asking for the city to do is to please fill in these ruts that are over a foot deep now with the proper equipment, and then place some type of deterrent along Yorktown. Suggestions from our residents have been curbing, trees, signage, metal posts, delineators, not bombs, or something to stop vehicles entering the city right away and doing damage. Also, if possible, maybe an unmarked police car posted at the Assistant Living Center on Friday and Saturday evenings to try to catch the offender. And I have photos of all our damage if anyone wants to see them, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank
If you'd
you.
like to stick around, I'm going to talk about it a little further in my comments in a bit, okay?
Thank you.
Robert Reinhagen. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North. I want to talk about Senate Bill 180. It's entitled An Act Relating to Emergencies, and it proposes to support rebuilding after a hurricane. But it includes a blanket prohibition to enact any moratoriums on construction, reconstruction, or redevelopment. In addition, the law forbids more restrictive or burdensome amendments to its comprehensive plan or land development regulations. So it goes much beyond just helping those people that got damaged from a hurricane. And at the last council meeting, you heard a citizen discuss the impact of Senate Bill 180 on home rule. And I was very disappointed that no one I was disappointed no one addressed the citizens' concern during the council comments. You also had Representative Tremont here that day, and none of you questioned him about his understanding of SB 180, which he voted for. To me, after a hurricane is when a moratorium might be appropriate so that you can evaluate what went wrong and correct any regulations or deficiencies. And so I'm asking you to lobby your legislators to modify SB 180 to exempt any property damaged by the hurricane from being included in any moratorium or any new changes to the land development code, other than you totally prevent them. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Derek Lamontagne. Welcome, Derek.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. My name is Derek Lamontagne, Geiger Drive, Port Orange, and I'm here to talk to you on behalf of myself and the Sweetwater Coalition of Volusia County to ask you to do everything in your power to hit pause on the wetland destruction happening right now at the Pioneer Trail I-95 interchange site. As many of you are familiar, it's been a project that's been in the works for a long time, but I'm asking this because we are concerned about the irreversible environmental damage, and especially the wetland impact, the flooding that might happen, especially if they're starting now in the rainy season. And I'm asking you for several other reasons to again, contact agencies, perhaps see if some redesign alternatives can be included that will be a better project if it has to be built. But there's several concerns I did want to address here that in case the public needs to know this and for yourself as well, although I'm sure you guys have been following this as well. So there's a lot of issues, including the flood risk, the increased induced traffic demand, and the high cost to taxpayers. You know, this as estimated between $80 to $120 million coming from various parts of the state, maybe federal government. But I'd also like to say that as you also know, this project has faced some court challenges recently, and it's true that from what I've understood, and I follow this very carefully, the FDOT, who's kind of leading this project, has really misrepresented the benefits and in order to kind of get this project through, and they've reallocated again all this money from other more worthy projects, and the reason for that is complicated, but I think it's the wrong thing to do at this time. So again, having participated in several of these hearings, I can tell you that not only did they kind of rush this through and do a poor job, but these agencies actually kind of may have lied to some people, including yourselves, about some of the benefits, including I would say that they did not really incorporate the public interest, and that's what a judge had at some point found, that it was not clearly in the public interest. So why did they say that, or what is the reason? Well, because there are alternatives. You're supposed to minimize impact to the environment. You're supposed to maximize taxpayer dollars, and that really wasn't happening. As we know, there's going to be dozens of wetlands impacted. There's going to be the traffic induced that isn't really going to benefit Dunlawton as much as they say it will, like maybe a few seconds. But also the water pollution. There'll be direct water pollution from this project into a tributary that goes right to Spruce Creek. And we want to protect the connectivity to the Spruce Creek Preserve, stop the flooding that is already facing that area. And so again, asking you to do everything in your power. And if anyone wants to learn more, they can visit savedon'tpavesprucecreek.com. And we're really trying to just get the word out there to make a better redesign and protect the environment and our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is that it, Amanda? Moving on to council comments. Let's start with Councilman Foley this evening.
We got a
Good to
long,
see you.
yeah, good to be here. We got a long agenda, so nothing except that thinking of Mary and her family. An awesome person. If you got to spend any time with her at all, and her service to the city cannot be overstated. And so she'll be dearly missed by a lot of folks, especially in our police department. So just thoughts and prayers for her and her family. Otherwise, we got a long agenda tonight. So.
And just a note on that, I'd be remiss, once it has been written out and approved, we will read her obituary into the permanent record here for the city.
I think that's wonderful.
Councilman Groves.
Yeah, I think Councilman Foley and Mayor Stiltner has already talked about Miss Mary, but it's pretty amazing, I would say young lady, because she spent 40 years with the VIPs and the police department. That's longer than most people do for a normal job. And just amazing person. I do want to touch on one of the consent agenda items, 6C, that was pretty unique thing. It's collaboration amongst the departments inside the city, and I think it got overshadowed by everything that was going on for the consent agenda, and that's between the Parks and Recreation and Engineering, for them to come and hold up and ask for a little bit of money to be redesigned so that it actually saves money in the long term, that we're not having to redig up a complete pavement project that was supposed to be laid out. Spending a little bit of money up front saves us hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road. So thank you for the collaborations inside the departments from Engineering and Parks and Recreation. That was a great job and great savings for us in the long term. Hopefully, weather permitting, by Labor Day, the sports complex dealing at City Center for the kids' playground will be completed. So take a look at that. That's going to be coming up. It's about 75% done now, but we're hoping by Labor Day coming that we'll have that to be open up for Labor Day weekend for the kids. Also, notes for agendas. It always, if we don't talk about it now, it always gets missed. September 20th is White Place renovations of the park. This is where we are going to have boards up of what proposals are there for the community to come out and vote on ideals that will be presented at White Place. So that's September 20th at 9 a.m. If you live in that area or you visit that park, this is a great way to put your input in for that area. And then lastly is August 22nd from 5 to 7 p.m. I know Cameron was just here. She was talking about it for Art House. Over 500 kids went through the program this summer. And if you haven't seen what these kids produce in artwork, it's absolutely amazing. And I highly suggest come out, join the fun and the event from 5 to 7 coming up on August 22nd.
Awesome. So, Sean?
I don't have anything tonight.
All right. Why don't you yield your time then to Councilman Green?
Thank you. Your extra 3 minutes?
Go ahead, Lance.
I just got one thing I want to just touch on the consent agenda, and that was item 6A. And I've had some conversations with staff about, here's 3 houses that are flood prone that are going to get bought. And several things happen with this. You know, obviously the homeowner has wanted to do this, and so this is something that the program allows. It's been going on for a while. People buying, FEMA's buying houses and they're being torn down. So with that though, you know, there is a loss of tax revenue. There is also now the requirement for the city to maintain this piece of property. And so it's kind of twofold, how it's kind of going from a positive to very much now a negative. And what I asked was, again, first and foremost, if the property being surrendered has any benefit of stormwater management, that's obviously what we would do with it first. And then out of these 3, one of them does. One of them really helps the Cambridge Basin in our ability to do better at flooding on there. The other 2, not so much, and they're going to become basically grass lots. What I asked was, like, you know, could we go in there and plant trees on it and make it where it's maintenance free and just turn it back over to a lot. It's going to be owned by the city, but I don't want to have to now go cut grass. So again, it now has the other maintenance factor. So just want to make note on that, you know, with these houses being sold and they kind of flip from being a tax revenue to now a cost to the city. So but I do want us to turn them back to nature if we can. If we can put trees on them and not have to mow the grass, I think that's probably the ideal way, if it doesn't help stormwater first. So, thank you. That's all I got.
That's it. Yeah, those are good thoughts, and keep those in mind, because we're going to have to be having those. This sounds awful loud. So I'm going to move that back a little bit. We're going to be having to have those.
Well, that program's still on and it's still out there. So,
and you're right, because, you know, I think if in that particular neighborhood, if they still had a functioning HOA, we might have other options, but they don't, and that's kind of sad actually, because now it's in their neighborhood, right? And so it's the thing that's going to impact those homeowners the most. Yep. And it's going to be a challenge, because you know, some of the homeowners in there take really good care of their property. They
Yeah.
cut their grass every week, and it looks really, really nice. And we've got to decide how now to maintain that property with the least amount of cost, but also the least amount of impact in that neighborhood. And I like your idea of perhaps, you know, giving it as much of a natural.
Well, I don't
look
think these are gonna turn
back
into
into-
holes in the ground. People think, oh,
Right.
I'm gonna sell my house and build a hole in the ground, it's gonna help. It's not.
No.
You know what I mean? So now it goes back to being a field or a lot or whatever it is. And so if we can put less burden on the city to have to maintain it, I think it's better.
Sure, sure. Anything else? Okay, good. Couple of things I just wanted to touch on. I appreciate Mr. Reinhagen's comments this evening on Senate Bill 180 and the concept of home rule. It was actually on my list to touch base on. Everybody on council, I had received a letter from County Chair Jeff Brower with his thoughts and him wanting to share with us the position that the county council had decided to take and on Senate Bill 180 and speaking and communicating with our state representatives. So I would encourage, I've already done that with Chase Tremont, and we'll be doing that here soon with Senator Tom Wright, just having those conceptual discussions about those. You know, the home rule, people hear home rule and not everybody really understands what that means. That's a concept. There's no legal binding thing that says, okay, these particular items the state legislature has to stay hands off, and these particular items the municipal governments have full control over. And so the concept of home rule is allowing those biggest decisions that most impact your residents locally to be made by your local folks. And a lot of times that's the case, and then other times that's not the case. And so it is important for us to have those constructive conversations with folks that serve us in Tallahassee. And they're willing to hear them, by the way. I've never reached out to any of them and them say, hey, I don't want to hear that. They're always willing to have those conversations. And we may have to agree to disagree sometimes, but it's still worthy of having the conversation. And our responsibility as representatives in municipal government is to carry back the feel and the messages and the information that we get from our residents and make sure that we can be that channel to those folks and pass that information on. So I encourage you guys to continue to do that. Another item I wanted to bring up this evening. So when somebody wants to file a litigation against the city, typically only a few folks get notices of that. The city attorney's office gets a notice. Many times the city manager gets a notice, and the mayor gets a notice. So those will come to me, and I know you guys don't always get to see those. But I wanted to let you know that we received 2 of them last week pertaining to sidewalks. However, what is really interesting is both of them had nothing to do with anybody walking on the sidewalks. They both had to do with e-bikes. That's what I wanted to touch on. So I'm not looking to make any decisions or make any suggestions or recommendations. What I want to make sure is from the city attorney's office, from the city manager's office, our police department, that we are collectively on the same page, that we need to make sure we're gathering information, that at some point this may be something that our city council has to review. And it may be something in early 2026 we can workshop and have those discussions, because I don't know how much data we have. I don't know what mandatory reporting is looking like. I know, I've seen folks on e-bikes that just wipe out and crash on their own somewhere around the city. A lot of times our fire rescue folks are going and providing first aid, and I don't know how that information is going to get compiled back to where, if the police department goes out and does a crash report, but those folks just do an injury report and the city attorney's getting information, somehow we want to make sure that it's all going to be compiled centrally so that council can get a good idea and a grasp on this. I had a resident reach out to me. He actually filmed somebody on an e-bike on a sidewalk the other day. He guesstimated a speed, I think that he was pretty high, but I know for a fact that a lot of these e-bikes will do between 22 and 28 miles an hour. And there are videos out on the internet that will show you how to modify the chip in the e-bike, make them even go faster than that. And the point I want to make to that is the municipal sidewalks in the city of Port Orange were never designed for any object on the sidewalk to be moving that fast. They were designed for folks riding bicycles, maybe a skateboard, walking. So we're going to have to, this is going to be an evolving thing. A lot of cities are tackling this, having really difficult discussions, and it's just something, just like I said, not looking for discussions tonight or decisions or anything like that. Just want to make sure that we're being aware of it, we're being in tune, we're listening to the feedback from our residents, and then, you know, compiling data. And at some point, we need to look at this and evaluate it and see from a safety perspective. Because, by the way, they don't always just hurt themselves. They crash into cars, they crash into people, pedestrians are getting hurt, things like that. So just something I wanted to put out there tonight, and make sure that our top city staff is collectively looking at that. You look like you wanted to make a quick comment.
Yeah, Mayor, what I would suggest, if we could as a council, is not to put the chief on the spot, but
But you're going to?
I'm going to. If Chief, if we could get traffic in charge of those fields dealing with e-bikes, if they could come and present to us the information that is current rules and regulations of e-bikes. And I happen to be one of those e-bikers and also a mountain biker when I was riding. It's coming back, but we're getting there. But there's a lot of regulations to that E1, E2 series bikes, and it deals with speeds and what can be on a road and what can't be on a road. It's an education thing, and I think that if we could hear from our law enforcement on that, it will give us a better chance as a council to look at the regulation as we go forward.
And I just want to be clear, I'm not anti-e-bike. I actually like them. I think they're pretty neat. I think we're going to see more and more of that. My concern is from a community safety perspective, the design of our sidewalks and our roadways and how these things are going to integrate into our lives at what seems to be an exponential pace. The cost of them are coming down. They're more affordable. That looks like a trend that's going to continue. They're a great way of transportation. I know as I visit other places around the United States and the state of Florida, they're just in mass everywhere. You go up to Gainesville, Florida, and I go up there to watch a football game, and they are everywhere. I mean, it's cool. I like it, but somehow we're going to have to be mindful of how that impacts our community. We heard from a resident tonight, Donna Kurtz, on the concern on the ruts. I will share with you that is not unique to that area. That is a problem we are seeing all over the city and the county right now. It is. So some of the feedback that I'm getting is that I'm not a TikTok person, okay? And if you don't know what that is, it is a social media platform that becomes wildly popular with teenagers being challenged to do something, video it, and repeat it over and over and over and over, and it becomes like the cool thing to do. And that is something that may be behind some of this, because they are doing this, they are videoing the destruction and the damage, and then they are putting this out there on social media, which then the next kid needs to one-up that kid and tear something else up, something. So we are seeing this all over the city of Port Orange. We do care, by the way. The thing is it costs money to go in there and fix that. We will do that. But what we don't want to do is go out there and spend all that taxpayer money, fix it today, and it gets torn back up. I will tell you that having served in law enforcement, this is something that's gone on for decades. I know in my past experience, we have made cases. When we do catch them, and we will prosecute them. We have impounded vehicles. I don't know if we've done a full forfeiture on a vehicle, but I think we've come close to. We started the process and maybe decided to be a little kinder and gentler. But we will hold them accountable. The state attorney's office will hold them accountable when we make those cases. So the reason I'm saying that is we are aware of it. We have been having this discussion this week with our city staff. I know that the police department is aware of it, and they are putting efforts out there to try. This is one of those things where we need the public to help us. If you see it happening in your neighborhood, don't just write it off as, oh, that's just some kid tearing up a little bit of grass. No, it's probably not. It's probably this thing that's going on, and they're tearing up a lot of stuff. And it's not just grass. They damage sidewalks, they damage irrigation systems, they damage street signs. Sometimes they end up crashing these vehicles. So it is something we are aware of. I do appreciate your comments. We do care about it, and I will share with you even. Probably for the last 40 years, I know I'm looking at Councilman Green because he's aware, there was an area off of Central Park. Every time it rained, they'd go out there and tear it up. And it took a really, really long time. The city had to go in and put a very unique curbing that, in my opinion, aesthetically doesn't look good, doesn't fit in the area, but they had to do that. They would even jump the curbing. We've had vehicles go out there to go to do it. They don't realize the curbing's there. They're hung up on the curbing, which makes it easy to catch them. But, so I wanted to let you know, I appreciate you coming tonight. I appreciate your, bringing this forward. It is something we are aware of. We are working on it. And again, just a plea to the public, if you see this, if you're, talk to your teenagers, it's not always teenagers. I get that. It's not always kids at the high school. History has shown more often than not that's what it has been. So if you have kids that are high school, talk to them. If they know who's doing this, we'd love to have that information, and they can report that, and their police department will follow up on it.
Mr. Mayor, can I comment on that? And this is just going to go back to my previous comments, and again, Wayne, I would like for us to talk about this, is the non-emergency line. Okay, in reality, they don't need to be calling 911 when somebody's out there peeling up the grass, but we need a non-emergency line that's getting answered. And currently, we're not getting that. And I just think that this is something that needs to be addressed, is at least somebody answer the damn phone that we can say, look, somebody's out here now, or if there's somebody nearby, but not to call 911. So I really think we need to make sure that we've got some kind of non-emergency response, and this is just part of it. Okay?
And I do want to comment on this too, because this kind of draws full circle to the seriousness of it. This isn't a minor thing. This isn't a minor criminal violation. The amount of damage quickly totals up to a felony amount. This is a felony crime in most of these cases. And they are going to be charged with felony crimes. So this isn't the minor things that a lot of us are aware of, having been kids ourselves, raised kids or whatever, the little thing here or there that if that happens, it's a minor issue. That's not what this is. This is pretty serious stuff, so they need to be mindful of it. And I just want to make a quick comment on item 7 that we passed in the consent. I want to just express that our police department has been doing a really good job. They made a great case last night. Some of you may have seen that on social media. Our leadership in our police department has come a long way in terms of recruiting, hiring, retention, and I want to say thank you to this council. I know for a lot of you it's your first time going through contract negotiations, and I think that the council acted very responsibly in making sure that our police department is competitively paid, and that they have benefits, and that we have a package that will allow the chief to continue to recruit the best, and we can retain them and keep them here. So I just want to say thank you to you guys, and I want to say thank you to the police union and their professionalism in negotiating. This may be August 19th. This may be one of the fastest, smoothest negotiations that I've seen since I've been on council, where we got to work early. We cut through a lot of the whatever we went on, I'm not even sure what to call it, but we got to the nuts and bolts of this thing and focused on it, and they did as well. And so I truly appreciate that. So got 2 more to get wrapped up. Hopefully we can get those done here pretty soon, and I'll move on to the next thing. So that's all I've got for the evening.
Mayor, one more quick thing.
Why don't you go with one more thing?
Yeah, just because of the conversation, I know you said you mentioned you reached out to Councilman Geffert, and this is not necessarily about that one subject. It's more about an overall thing when you're reaching out to us, and I'm probably opening Pandora's box a little bit. But our email filters on our city emails are very strong. There's a lot of times that I have people who I converse with where their emails will go to spam, and I'll have to go in there and find them. Sometimes they don't even appear in spam or junk. They just miraculously vanish. So don't hesitate to try to contact us more than one way. If you can't get us via email, we do have phones as well for the city that are on the website, and we are here to serve you. We are here to help. So, and it's not, like I said, not just for you, but for anyone who's having an issue. If you reach out to an email and you don't hear back in a week, follow up with another email, or go on and shoot us a text message or call us. Either way, we are here to serve you. And so I just want to make sure I say that, because I've had dozens, if not hundreds of emails I've had to go fishing out of my spam folder to get. It's just we have to be very protective here at the city, because we have a lot of information on our servers and things. So just be aware of that.
I'd like to follow up on that, Dan.
Go ahead.
Yes, so Yorktown, you're not the first person that's contacted me, and I apologize for not getting back to you, but someone's talking about the speed on that road as well needs to be addressed. That people are taking that from Will Run out to Yorktown, out to Dunlawton at an excessive speed. I've witnessed it myself. But I want to go back to the police negotiations and thank our staff for making it
Good
easy
point.
for me to understand
Yeah.
what we were navigating through. So I really do appreciate the staff when we were in our meetings there. And that's all I have.
I appreciate you picking that
Oh,
up.
and back to the email. I don't know, and I think I mentioned it to him. I'm getting emails, but they're not from citizens. I want to say 54 emails on healthcare this week. Have any of you received the same thing?
I don't get
healthy
any of those
mindset.
spam emails.
No, these are
I
coming. These
unsubscribe from
aren't
them
going to
every
my
time.
spam. That's the
Yeah.
problem. I'm having to.
They were, now they're not.
When I-
No, they're not.
When I
It's-
first got
it's
on
all-
council, it
yeah.
took me months of unsubscribing to things because whenever you first get elected, there's automated software that just signs you up for everything that may or may not interest a government official. So just pound that unsubscribe
I had
button.
less fluoride emails than I had for my skincare in the last week.
It is brutal. I
It's
will
a
tell you, when I
lot.
first got on council, we decided to just utilize my previous email from when I worked for the city in law enforcement because it worked easy. I was still, up until just last year, still getting emails about police equipment from stuff 20 years ago. And the amount of advertisement and spam and junk emails is horrendous. It has helped that I've transitioned now to a new, simpler email, but they're starting to pile up
Yeah.
quickly. So you're not alone in that.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. City Attorney, correct us on all the things that we may have misspoke about.
Misconstrued.
Well, we had a long meeting, so I'll spare you that and yield my time to the gentleman from Augusta.
Okay, all right. Mr. City Manager.
Just really briefly, since you mentioned the union negotiations, the firefighters and the general employees are both really close to being done. We expect to have, I think, firefighters to you, the first meeting in September, maybe, I don't know whether Nage is going to make the first meeting. They might. Both of them, all of them have done the same thing, very professional, very well done. Principally, I want to thank Michelle and HR and Linda and Finance who took that through, and Matt's help towards the end to make sure that it all ends up coming together. So good team, good group of people, and I look forward to bringing the other two groups and having 500 employees all under contract and ready to go.
Excellent,
And
excellent.
then the only other stuff I have, we'll talk about during the fund balance part of it.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's get to work on some other things. Special reports, presentation of vulnerability assessment. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Council, Juneau Reed, City Engineer. I'm happy to be here tonight to give you guys a presentation on our vulnerability assessment. Probably heard us make mention of it a few times in the master plan presentation, we mentioned it. Basically, the vulnerability assessment is kind of akin to the master plan. The way I like to explain it is master plan, we took a look back, saw what happened. Vulnerability assessment, we take a look forward for out planning periods. So, with that said, we have Chris Neferatis and Shelby Rocha from Kimley Horner who are going to be providing the presentation tonight, and will be available for questions afterwards. So with that, Chris.
Excellent.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for having us again. I'm Chris Neferatis with Kimley Horn, project manager, and Shelby Rocha here was project engineer on the study. So, introduction, this project was made possible through the City of Port Orange and collaboratively funded through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection's Resilient Program. The project objective is to conduct a vulnerability assessment focused on flooding that's consistent with the Florida statute and how it's delivered. And what is a vulnerability assessment? Vulnerability assessment is just is a planning tool to look in the future and how to manage flooding in terms of the impact of flooding on the city's critical assets. The purpose was to identify the risks associated with flooding and sea level rise, as well as surge, to identify vulnerable property or infrastructure, prioritize high-risk areas, and to devise resilience-based strategies to target those risks, to lessen those risks moving forward in the future. And what is included? It's an inventory of all city-owned critical assets. So your roadways, your utilities, buildings, parks, and more. It's a planning level flood risk analysis that looks into the future in terms of future stresses that occur from the flooding and rainfall and sea level rise and surge. And also this was done with public outreach and community engagement. We had 2 stakeholder meetings as part of the process and 2 public outreach meetings. And why is this important? Well, it's required by FDEP, and I think the biggest takeaway from this slide is doing this vulnerability assessment sets you up to be able to go after future funding for implementation projects. So having this done really puts you, gets you in line for those implementation projects. And again, it supports long-term planning efforts, building a more resilient community and understanding what those future risks could be. So this was our project schedule in terms of where we're at. I highlighted a public presentation. We're close to wrapping this up with a final vulnerability assessment and then moving into the adaptation plan. Yes, sir?
I apologize, I should have asked you this. As you're going through this, would you prefer if you get to a section where one of us may have a question that we let you
go right
know
ahead.
that, and we'll talk about it then, or do you want to go all the way through? or-
I'm fine either way you want to do it.
Okay, you folks good with that too?
I'm good.
So I'll go first.
All right,
So
cool.
on that comment that you just made, I want to be clear for those that are going to rewatch this and those that have lots of questions for us. That vulnerability assessment, it is not a suggested thing for a lot of these funding mechanisms. It is a required element.
It's a required element if you want to get funding from DEP for implementation
Okay,
projects.
I just want to make sure, because I'm aware of that, but I want to make sure that that is clearly stated, because a lot of folks, they want to know why sometimes they don't understand the process, that there is a process. So,
Okay.
thank you. Carry forward.
Any other questions?
All right, go right ahead.
Okay. So this is project schedule. First part of this project was the data collection, and that's where we really compile and build the report card for the project. We're pulling together topographic information, which is the digital elevation model that was acquired. We obtain the flood scenario data from rainfall, sea level rise, and storm surge. And then we do an inventory of city-owned assets, which are typically the transportation assets, evacuation routes, critical infrastructure such as your treatment plants and lift stations, community facilities and emergency facilities, and looking at natural, cultural, and historical resources, which predominantly for the city were your parks. And the intent of this slide is just to show you the number of risks that we looked at in the future, looking at rainfall, sea level rise, surge, compound flooding, combining those events together. So that was about 2 dozen or so scenarios that we looked at. And the next step from this was doing the exposure analysis, basically taking all those different events and putting them on a map. Where are those flood depths, where are the extents of those events, and where they line up. And again, it was looking at rainfall induced, or what's called pluvial flooding, sea level rise, high tides, storm surge, and then compound flooding, which is taking some of those events and stacking them on together, combining them. Any questions? Good.
So on this particular slide,
Yes, sir.
is this is based on what has already occurred? Or
This is based on a statistical rainfall event, which is called the 100-year rainfall. So that's the 1% chance of, was it 13 inches? Or I can't remember. 14, around 14 inches. So it's a statistical chance of that happening 1% within the year.
and we had that happen twice in
Yes.
2 years?
Yes.
This is 14 inches over 24 hours. So like where Milton's case, it was 14 inches, but like 9 of them were in 2 hours.
Yeah,
So to-
you had a high intensity with Milton.
Yeah.
And then to Councilman Gefford's question, on this also takes into account that sea level rise, the tides, all of that collectively.
Yeah. What's shown on the map is just the rainfall.
Oh, okay.
But there was, we had a host of other, I think 130 maps that showed
Right.
all the different
Okay.
events.
Okay.
And then this is just the other examples of the rainfall. Actually, the one to the left is the 100-year storm surge that we're looking at. The flood extends over there, and then you're looking at the 500-year rainfall event.
Okay, looking at the 100-year storm surge, and this is Spruce Creek coming in here on the left screen. And that particular creek went over one of our roadways. Is that calculated into this map as well? So what I'm getting at is that roadway didn't flood because of, it had more to do with storm surge and less rain.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to ask you again, that road flooded because it had more to do with storm surge than the amount of rain we had.
So we got the,
Well, I think storm surge is probably more extreme of a storm event than
Right.
evaluated.
I would say that bridge went underwater from a combination
it was
of extreme rain event plus storm surge at the same time.
Gotcha.
And one of the storm events that we looked at within this assessment is the compound impacts of the 100-year rainfall with storm surge. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the extreme flooding with the roadways as well.
And that's within this slide here too.
that one's just the 100-year storm surge.
Just the surge is what you're
Just the surge.
This is just a surge,
Yeah.
which
But-
flooded
Yeah.
the road
But there are other maps that show the surge with the rainfall.
with the rainfall.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's still not taking in fact of king high tides, full moon phases to the high tide.
That's just the surge. Yes, sir.
Still the surge.
Yeah.
Okay?
And
Plus the elevation of Moody Bridge is low.
Yeah.
just so
Right.
folks that are watching stuff like this, define storm surge for us.
So storm surge, simply put, is when we get high wind activity pushing that water
From the ocean,
from the ocean to
through the inlet,
Yep.
to the ICW, into our canals, creeks, drainage, stuff like that.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Thank you. It's helpful for us to be able to do it like this. so
Yeah, no,
thank you.
it's all good. It's all good. And the next slide here is the sensitivity analysis. So we had the exposure analysis, which essentially put lines on the map, and the sensitivity analysis looks at the criticality of the assets and the events of which they occurred. So anything in red meant that it was a high sensitivity. Anything in yellow was medium, and something that was low was kind of like kind of the lower color there in the low. So it varied per asset. So structural assets were high in that the finished floor elevation was over top during an event. Something that was medium was 6 inches below the finished floor and up to the finished floor, but not exceeding the finished floor. And something that was lower was within 12 inches of the finished floor. Now that's for structural assets. Something like your parks, we looked at them as a ratio. What percentage of the park was flooded in terms of the overall area? So it kind of varies on what we do there. But what we see on here on the slide, as you can see, is the treatment plants in particular are vulnerable. The area in and around this area has been deemed vulnerable from some of the feedback that we got. And then a lot of the lift stations, particularly in the northeast part, were deemed vulnerable as well too, at a high sensitivity.
When we say an area is vulnerable, are we largely acknowledging the fact that we live in Florida, that we're a coastally based community, that we have a relatively low elevation to sea level, things like that?
Yes, that factors into your vulnerability
Okay.
based on the lay of the land and then how high the flooding gets.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And then from that, after we had developed the sensitivity analysis, we did what's called the focus areas. These were broken up 6 areas throughout the city. This was also vetted through as part of the public engagement process, looking at some of these areas. So this gives you some laser sharp focus in terms of where to look at future adaptation plans from which you can develop interventions for in the future. So this is kind of the breakout of the 6 areas. We also did this in conjunction with the stormwater master plan that Juno was talking about. So we weren't doing the siloed. A lot of the stuff that we came up with flanged up really well with the master plan, and some of those projects do in fact occur in those focus areas. And the next part, this is after today, we're going to move right into the adaptation plan, and that's looking at strategies or interventions that are going to increase flood resilience. And typically, we look at those types of interventions, look at 3 things. That's your gray infrastructure, that's your raising of infrastructure, upsizing pipes, green infrastructure, which looks at nature-based solutions, and then of course blue infrastructure, which looks at regional stormwater facilities and passive parks. And a lot of times it's a combination of these 3 things in terms of how you can reduce the risk moving forward in the future. And just rounding this out, the next steps are to submit the final vulnerability assessment, which will happen this week. complete the adaptation plan, participate in some LMS meetings, and submit for future FDP funding as part of the implementation. And that's it.
All right. Lance, let's start with you.
I'm good. I don't think, this is right up my alley.
Yeah, I think you get it, right? Sean, go ahead.
Now, you clarified some things for me, and thank you.
Reed?
Well, I understand it, appreciate what you guys have been doing, and looking forward to next steps.
Say the next step's what we're looking for.
Thank you.
No, we appreciate you guys coming tonight and the work that goes into doing this. I think we get it, and but we know we need to have this element in our toolbox and to be able to utilize it to work more towards resiliency, funding, all these different kind of things. And the one question I wanted to ask, and I'm trying to figure out in my brain how to frame it in a way that I can ask it, but when you're doing these vulnerability assessments, you're obviously picking metrics to work from, and like, you know, we've had 2 significant historic storms that have brought volumes of rainfall in short periods of time that nobody living in Port Orange has ever seen, living here at least. And so, you know, we get asked a lot about, you know, can you keep my house from flooding again? And I'm always very realistic and say, no, I can't. Because, you know, as we look at things like this, those metrics that you're using or we're using or whatever, a lot of times they don't align with storms that will produce 20 inches of rainfall, you know? And so can you speak to that a little bit? Like when you're doing that, how does that go in line with what we have had in the recent experiences here in our city in terms of how us to assess that? Because we're not really assessing on how to stop a 20-inch storm rainfall event that brings 5 feet of storm surge and impacts us in the middle of an incoming tide, right? So I mean that pretty much is unrealistic. Am I right? Or are we using metrics to say if you get another 20-inch storm, we've plugged in the metrics with 20 inches of rain in 24 hours, incoming tide, all these scenarios that we can assess your city and you can start working towards X, Y, and Z and guarantee certain things, or is that not really how it works?
So we look at several things. We look at metrics based on what's reg, you know, properties and structures. It's usually the 100-year rainfall event. But we take it with these vulnerability assessments where, you know, resilience is planning for an uncertain future. So we're able to look at some of these reg events, but then we're also able to cast the net further. So we're looking at the 100-year rainfall, but we're also looking at the impacts of storm intensification. Is the 100-year rainfall really the 100-year rainfall anymore? I think you could probably say probably not. So
Yeah.
that looks at adding something like rainfall change factors, where we put like 20% on top of what historically has occurred for the 100-year rainfall. And then again, we look at combining all the different elements: sea level rise, surge, pluvial rainfall, and what those effects are. So, you know, 25 of those we did cast the net further and looking at some of those events beyond what's in regulation.
And are we correct in understanding that, like in my mind, the last 2 storms, the significance of water was from rainfall, not as much from storm surge? Having been born and raised in Florida, you know, and obviously being in tune with watching how storms impact all over the United States, it seems that it is very possible to get significantly less rainfall, but much more storm surge, and all of the efforts to address storm water and flooding, it's just going to happen. I mean, if the storm surge hits right,
Yeah.
or am I not thinking about that correctly?
No, you're correct. And say, as you move more kind of upland, it becomes more pluvial based. So more rain that you get, more flooding that you get. The higher intensity of rain that you get, the more flooding that you get. As you move more towards the east and the coastal elements, that's more surge induced, and also sea level rise. With that, you know, coming out sunny day flooding and seeing all that's there. So it's a combination of things that this study looks at in terms of planning for an uncertain future.
And the last question, I don't mean to put you on the spot with this one. If you don't know, it's okay. But recently I heard an elected official from another municipality make mention of a study that they had received that indicated that sea levels more aligned with what we would look at as intercoastal waterway in our river here, are about 5 inches higher at high tide over the last, I can't remember, but a certain amount of time than they used to be, let's say 20 years ago. Is that correct?
Yeah,
or?
that's on par, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that so if we're saying that, if we're sharing that with our community, that at high tide now, that river's 5 inches higher than it was 20 years ago, that's pretty accurate?
It varies where you are in the state, because if you move further south, like Miami area, it's actually because water's so dense, 62 pounds per cubic foot, you actually have subsidence because water's coming up and sea levels are rising. We have land subsidence in South Florida. So
That's not good.
yeah, it does vary in the state, but it has been rising over the past 20 years. And there are resources that are out there. U.S. Army Corps and NOAA have gauges on the sites, and you can see historically what the rise has been, and those have been geographically corrected.
And the reason I ask that out, obviously, is, as we have these discussions in the community, I'm always talking about, we have to get water out of the city. It's not just put it in a ditch or a retention pond, because that's only going to help us so much. Ultimately, we got to get it to the river. It's got to go out of Ponce Inlet to help us. And so when you're fighting against higher levels and storm surges and certain tidal flows and moon phases, all of those things play a factor that I don't know that a lot of folks really understand. And I don't understand them all, but I understand it enough that that they are significant factors on how we're going to be able to move stormwater and keep it out of people's homes.
Yeah, it's really understanding the risks, and it's really about accepting what happens, and then maybe building smarter, or building more resilient. I often say, people say, I got the solution to all this stuff, and people say, what's that? And I was like, well, put high rises. But
sure.
But does everyone want to live in a high rise? And you think of the flooding in some cases, we talked about, hey, it's above the finished floor elevation, or it's near the switch gears of the lift stations. It may not be there, and your structure may not be flooded, but it's still flooded in and around the area.
Yeah. Well, and I think we all tend to have a look, and we understand that we're okay with roads temporarily being flooded. We don't want to water people's homes and structures. And that's, when we say flooded, that's what we're talking about. If it's in your home, that's what we're heavily concerned about.
Sure.
If your street is flooded for 12 or 16 or 24 hours in a lot of our neighborhoods, that's where the design retention is from a neighborhood that was built 40 years ago. It's designed for the streets to take the water. Hopefully we can keep it out of the home. So did you one more bite? Did you guys want to?
Yeah, I just back up, I don't know how many years it was, one of the former police chiefs mentioned something about a storm surge, and depending on the size of the storm, and it came from the Atlantic side. Most of our storms seem to come up I-4 and not, into I-4. We don't normally get hit in Daytona from a direct hit from the east side, so our storm surge hasn't never been that impactful. Like, I don't know if you recall Hurricane Ivan up in the Panhandle, and it came up there and it pushed 6 miles, storm surge did. If we had we have a storm, Category 4, a couple 100 miles to the east of us. If that hit us directly, have you calculated what the storm surge would be and where it would end up at? Because I heard it would go to 95, and rainfall wouldn't matter at that time because we'd have a push of storm surge. This study doesn't take into consideration that kind of storm surge, does it?
No, we looked at the storm surge from what is really published data from FEMA, and we took that information and projected it with a tool to see where it pushes out to. So we looked at the 100-year storm surge.
So we have a scenario where we can get a direct hit from the east and it changes everything. Storm surge could be 10 to 12 feet, and that's going to flood way past Nova Road.
Yeah, I mean, Fort Myers.
Without rain.
Yeah, and Fort Myers Beach was 20.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Anything else, gentlemen? Thank you guys very much. We appreciate you. Did you want to weigh in on anything, Jeff?
Yeah, I just wanted to just make one more comment so that
of course.
in the light of making everybody understand. So the vulnerability assessment was done with 100% grant from DEP. So we didn't pay for this. This was done through a grant from DEP. So we're grateful to them to provide us with a grant in order for us to do the assessment.
Good job.
Agreed.
So that was
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Item 14, Citizen Advisory Committee for the TPO. Mr. Bobby Ball. Gentleman who might know a little something on elevation and the need for more of it. How are you, Bobby? Welcome.
Good. Bobby Ball with CAC for the TPO. We had our first meeting in a couple months because we had off in July. And pretty standard meeting, getting updates on the TIP and the UPWP, but nothing really to report there. But I did want to say that we had a presentation on the long-range transportation plan, and it's getting pretty much done. And so now they've opened up a comment period and a review period to review the whole plan. And so it's open until September 17th. You can go to the website, and it's on the left side near the bottom. You should be able to click on it and read the whole plan. The most important part is the cost feasible plan. If you look at that, that's really something that they're planning to build with the funds they're expecting to get. So if you have any real comments on it, it's probably a good time to do it now. And I know Tim knows about it too, so staff might have some thoughts too.
What website is that, Bobby?
TPO website.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Between you and Tim, and I've actually been having this conversation lately with the city manager, but maybe something you could put an ear to and talk about on a future visit is the Sidewalks Gaps programs that they've done over the years, and whether or not that looks like is forecasted to continue, how much money is going into that, are they changing the parameters to that, and I know we've taken advantage of that and continue to look to take advantage of that, and I'm just kind of curious what that forecast looks like over the next several years, if that's something we think is going to, we want to keep heavy on our radar, and if the parameters for what they're looking for is changing or whatever. So any insight either you or Tim could bring back to us, that's a conversation I think we're going to be having.
Sir, you got it.
Forward. Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby.
Get well.
Thanks, Bobby.
Item 15, first reading of ordinance number 2025-20. How about it, Mr. City Attorney?
Just bear with me on this one.
Okay.
An ordinance of the City of Orange, Volusia County, Florida, rezoning approximately 0.46 acres from community commercial to neighborhood preservation located at 412 Jefferson Avenue, 414 Jefferson Avenue, and 416 Jefferson Avenue. Rezoning approximately 0.18 acres from Ridgewood Development to neighborhood preservation located at 117 Fleming Avenue. Rezoning 0.77 acres from neighborhood preservation to office residential transition located at 608 Rosalie Street and parcel number 6304-07-00-0760, generally located on Dunlawton Avenue. Rezoning approximately 0.24 acres from neighborhood preservation to government public use located at 413 Herbert Street. Rezoning approximately 1.07 acres from planned commercial development to government public use, being identified as parcel numbers 6304-07-00-1820 and 6304-07-00-1401, generally located at Spruce Creek Road and Dunlawton Avenue. Rezoning approximately 1.66 acres from multifamily residential to government public use, being identified as parcel numbers 6341-05-00-0010 and 6341-04-03-0142, generally located at Ruth Street. Rezoning approximately 0.31 acres from single-family residential, R10 SF, to government public use, located at 5797 Devon Street, authorizing revision of the official zoning atlas and providing an effective date.
You really should have technology to record that so you can play it back at the second reading. Can I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 2025-20 so we can put this on the floor?
Move to approve ordinance number 2025-20.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good evening, Penelope Cruz Planning. Thank you, Matt, for reading that. The proposed administrative rezoning is to change the zoning of 12 properties generally located on the east side of the city, east of Nova Road, to correct some zoning inconsistencies. I've personally spoken to all of the private property owners and received their authorization to move forward with these rezonings. And they were all very happy and thankful that the city was doing this administratively on their behalf to correct these inconsistencies. So staff prepared this primarily to bring these properties into compliance with the city's future land use map, to ensure consistency with the surrounding areas, as well as to address the historic or intended use of the properties. So there's 4 properties that are proposed to be rezoned from to neighborhood preservation, all of which have been historically developed with single-family homes. 2 of the properties are proposed to be rezoned to office residential transition to establish consistency with their current future land use designation along Dunlawton and bring that into compliance with the zoning. And then 6 of the properties are proposed to be rezoned to government public use zoning district. These are properties that are owned by the city of Port Orange and are either currently developed or planned to be developed for public purposes. So with that, the staff report addresses in detail, as did the ordinance title block, the 12 properties and what they're going to and from with mapping exhibits in the staff report, exhibits 1 through 3. Staff is here to answer any questions you may have and is recommending approval.
Thank you very much. Questions?
I believe I heard you say it, but you've already spoken to all the private residents, and they are all in favor for this?
Yes, I have signed, original signed authorizations from all of them.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Tracy, anything? Sean?
Nope.
Lance?
No.
Good cleanup work. I don't really have anything. Makes perfect sense. We appreciate you guys always looking for opportunities to do the little cleanup and break some things up to date where they need to be. So thank you very much. Let's go to the public. Anybody from the public wish to speak to this? Oh, okay. Back to council. Last chance. Anything? Passing on that. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Gephardt?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Groves?
Yes.
Mayor Slaughter?
Yes, 5-0. Item 16, first reading of ordinance number 2025-21. Why don't you try this one?
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 82, Article 1 to establish a new Section 82-6, authorizing an adoption a private aids to navigation patent plan for the purpose of establishing jurisdiction to install and maintain uniform waterway markers to safely guide boaters to and from the Riverwalk Day Dock, authorizing the city manager to sign all required environmental and navigational permit applications necessary for the Riverwalk Park Day Dock project, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2025-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second.
Tim
Welcome.
Harmon, Community Development. As part of the finalizing the permitting for the Riverwalk Day Dock, this is one of the requirements that we are having from the outside agencies to establish this plan for the patents where they're going to be located. So it also requires that we adopt the actual location map in our code. So this amendment will adopt the map that's shown on in the attachment there in our code with the exact location where those are to be located. And again, this is just kind of a requirement to check them off there to get those permits finalized and issued.
Just a quick question. So I looked at the map and thinking about where this orients on the water. Is this illustrating a channel that will go straight out from where the day docks would be all the way to the ICW?
No, there's actually an existing channel that basically kind of goes like right in front of that area, generally about 100, 200 feet or yards off of it then.
Yep.
So our project is to construct a channel about 200 yards to connect to that then.
Got it.
And then that extends you out to the ICW.
Yep.
And then all we are doing is putting the markers into the area that we are dredging. And then of course the signs near the dock then to let them know shore is coming soon. Which
Perfect.
hopefully they see that at that
Yeah.
time.
Got it. Okay, that's all I wanted to know, because just the way I was looking at the map, I was trying to judge, I guess, that distance and if that just continues. But what you're talking about makes perfect sense. I know exactly the channel you're speaking
The
of.
channel's 1 foot deep at low tide.
It is. District 4's vessel will do just fine.
1 foot and 5 inches, according to the latest studies.
Lance, anything?
No, it's good.
Sean?
No.
No. Gentlemen?
Nope.
No, we're good? Tracy, it's not deep enough to scuba.
I know.
You can snorkel it if you
Snorkel
want. You might not be happy with the bottom contour.
Yeah.
But you can sort
It's muddy.
No, I got nothing. All right, anybody, anything else, Tim?
That's all.
No. Anybody in the public wish to speak to this? Seeing none, back to council. Last chance. All right, clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Gephardt?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Groves?
Yes.
Mayor Slaughter?
Yes, 5-0. All right, item 17, administrative amendments to the land development code. Welcome back. You look just like the last guy that was here.
I think I have a little more hair than the last guy.
Yeah.
We'll
see.
A little more shine.
Let's get into the mirror. So, Tim Burman, Community Development. Similar to kind of what Penelope presented here on the administrative rezoning cleanup item, we also did a cleanup item on terms of the land development code. This was kind of based on some things that came forward through a Senate bill, and also some requirements in our code that we have been had past variances on, or master development agreements come through, and basically had those items voted to reduce these or reduce with them. So we just want to kind of bring those forward as a possible code amendment before you then. So we've got 4 of them. And what we're going to do is go through each one individually, stop, questions, then move on to the next one. And then at the end of that then we'll vote on them, whether we move forward or not then. So the first one we're going to speak about.
I'm sorry, pause just one quick second. Is there any benefit or procedure, Mr. City Attorney, to open all of these at one time? Have you read them all at one time, or how do we need to do that?
I mean, they're going to have to be voted on individually, so I think I can read all the blocks if you'd like to go ahead and get that out of the way. It'd be nice.
You want to go ahead and do that?
Yeah.
Stand by.
All right.
Go right ahead, my friend.
So first one's ordinance number 2025-22, an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 12, relating to design standards for off-street parking and loading areas to amend the minimum dimensional requirements for off-street parking spaces, providing for conflicting ordinances, severability, and providing an effective date. We have ordinance number 2025-23, which is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 3, Administrative Development Code, Chapter 5, subdivision related to plat approvals procedure to ensure consistency and compliance with the recently adopted state legislation amending Section 177.071 Florida statutes requiring certain plats and replats submittals be administratively approved without further action by the governing body, requiring the designation of an administrative authority for the plat review and approval process, setting forth the review timeframe and notice requirements related to the approval process for plat and replat submittals, conforming Section 177.111 Florida statutes to be consistent with Section 177.071 Florida statutes, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date. Ordinance number 2025-24 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 15, relating to digital signs and string lighting, amending the message display time, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability and an effective date. Ordinance number 2025-25, an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 16, relating to special setbacks for elevated wood decks, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
All right, let's go ahead and get a motion for each one of these and a second, and we'll go in order, starting with 17A. Reed, you want to
I'm
move
not.
that forward?
I'm not going to be doing that one.
No?
Someone else can do the A.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve on first reading ordinance number 2025-22.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second for ordinance number 2025-22. Want to just keep right on going, John?
Yep, I'll make a motion on first reading that we approve ordinance number 2025-23.
Do I have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second for ordinance number 2025-23. Go
I'll
ahead.
make a motion on first reading we approve ordinance number 2025-24.
Second?
A motion and a second for ordinance number 2025-24.
And I'll make a motion on first reading for ordinance number 2025-25.
Second?
We have a motion and a second for ordinance number 2025-25. Thank you, gentlemen. Go right ahead.
All right, Tim Bergen, Community Development again. So again, we've got 4 proposed code amendments here. We're going to go over them individually there and answer any questions then, and then move on to the next one then. The first one, again, is something that we've basically done a number of variances on that have been approved, and also master development agreements that have come before the City Council have been approved to reduce the parking width space from 10 foot to 9 foot then. Typically, when you look at basically the number of variances that go forward and they are approved and MDA amendments kind of approved, then you kind of look at your code and see, is there something that needs to be adjusted on that? Then as you keep on getting these requests, they come before and presenting and are approved, kind of triggers the need for us to go back and look at that then. So that's what we did. We recently had a variance that went to the Planning Commission for the Dutch Brothers, which is proposed on that gas station at the corner of Taylor Branch and Dunlun, and that was a request for the 9 foot spaces. And as we were writing the staff report, we joke around, like pull out the 9 foot space staff report, basically just change the address in, and that got us to thinking and looking into the other codes of other cities And basically, once we started looking around the other cities there, we found that basically we're one of the only cities that have the 10-foot wide spaces. All the other ones have adjusted to 9-foot over the years. And basically, when we looked at kind of the way Port Orange is developing, with more and more development is going to be redevelopment, infill lots in, so we're going to be dealing with more constrained lots. The ability to reduce the parking space, while it does seem minimal, 1 foot then, that does allow for a little bit more flexibility in the design of the site then. So the staff is recommending that we approve the code change to reduce the minimum width for a parking space from 10 foot to 9 foot. On the screen are just a few of the locations that have been approved and installed with the 9-foot wide spaces. Again, those are throughout the city, both larger shopping centers and also smaller infill lots that we've done over the course of the time.
Okay, keep on going, or you want us to vote on that one?
I think we could do question and answers on that one. And then,
Okay, let's do that. Reed?
Yeah, all 4 places that you've given here as examples, Tim, are just places I hate that I have to park my truck. And I will tell you, as someone that now has 2 kids, I have the 8-year-old and I have the 1.5-year-old. I also can't stand when I pull into one of these places and I have to let my wife get our son out of the car in the car seat because they're just so cramped. And I know 9's kind of standard, I guess, or there's a lot of cities around, but I think we should stay at 10. If we stay at 10, then I wouldn't be entertaining making amendments to future agreements either, just because I can't stand when I got to park my truck. You drive a 350, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, even in these pictures, you see a lot of 4-door sedans, like you see looks like just a Prius and Toyota Corolla. I mean, yeah, those are great for 9-foot spaces, but I mean, we live in Florida and a lot of people drive big trucks and SUVs. So for me personally, I'm a no on this. I would like to see us stay at 10 feet.
Tracy?
It's difficult. I'm not going to disagree with Councilman Foley. The difference, if you're looking at Ford product from a Maverick Ranger to a F-150 to a 350, it's challenging. We still live in a community that still has rural base, that has horse farms out on 415 that is dealing with Super Duties and diesels and big trucks. So having those and community base coming into the township and having difficulties to park, or don't want to think about it, park at the very far end because there are no parking places close enough because the parking place is too smaller. It's I have to agree, 10 foot versus 9 foot. This goes back to, I think we voted on something kind of crazier to make the similarity, but housings with the lot lines being so close, we had to put AC units on the back of the house because the AC units on the side of the houses were on the 0 lot lines and they were burning up. So now we're going to put cars even closer. Granted, you're showing me examples that it's already there, but I don't think it needs to be free will that every one of them is that way. Just my opinion.
John?
Oh, I'm so glad you showed me these pictures because I was always wondering why it was so darn difficult to back in and park in these spots. I was like, what is going on here? I just never could understand it. Now I understand it. We made an exception to what we were doing. I hate to make you work harder, and but this, and I've witnessed this down in South Florida as well, I believe, somewhere where I just find it very difficult to park, and so I'm not in favor of it.
Thanks.
So Tim, just a couple things. So in this report, you state that there have been no documented operational or safety issues with parking lots developed with 9-foot spaces. What does that mean?
We have not received any complaints, basically in our department, basically after a project's been approved and built about that then.
Okay, your department.
You got some tonight.
Okay, but I would be curious to know, as the police department, how many fender benders we have in these parking lots. That would just be my, statistically speaking.
I mean, I think we've had fender benders in parking lots that have 10-foot spaces too.
I get it. I get it.
That's more of a driving issue on that point.
So, I'll just say this. I'm of the mindset that if we had a redevelopment project on a piece of property that was challenged, I would be more adapt to a review of a variance than I would be to just say, let's just go throw them on all 9 feet. Mm-hmm. So I would look at it as if it was a redevelopment issue, Tim, I would agree to it. But something brand new, not really. Who's it benefiting? It's benefiting the developer to squeeze more spots in there than it is to the people.
And respectfully, if anything, I mean, maybe there's a way we can look at the maximum number of required spots, lowering that if we need to help the developer, you know. But I'd rather have 10 foot wide and let them not put one spot in there than to try to cram it in at 9 feet.
I agree with you 100% on that. I don't know if it's a state law that you have to have a
it's
certain
not.
amount of,
No, it's not.
you know, I don't know. That's why
Well,
I'm
no,
just
there's a
asking.
code, there's a formula how many spaces we
There's
have.
ratios that we have. Most
Yeah.
of the time, you know, they are wanting to put less spaces in at 9 foot then. I mean, one compromise, I think one of the reasons why we're trying to do this too is in terms of when we're doing redevelopment infill, basically the ability to basically approve those and not have to go through a public hearing process in terms of timing there is one of the issues that we're trying to streamline that.
Well, I would rather do that
And
than.
maybe we look at basically a code amendment that gets set up for the redevelopment projects to fall for that versus newer developments then and come back with a different proposal. But that way, in terms of the variances, if it's like the Dutch Brothers one, that's a good example of basically a very constrained site, which basically needed the 9 foot spaces to make that work then. If they didn't get the 9 foot spaces, it was not going to work and may have just been left at that gas station then.
But could we have not said, hey, we're willing to give them a variance of less required spaces because that's our code? We can't we have that variance
One of the
option
problems that
instead?
they were going to walk away from that one because their model required a certain number of spaces
Okay.
on there then. So that was a case where our code was requiring
But again,
more.
They required more on theirs than our code did.
So that's
Okay.
what you deal with sometimes on that then.
but again, Tim, that's a challenged piece of property. That's a unique piece of property. So I could understand, let's try and work with them on something like that. But I don't want to go and lay down the groundwork of the code to say they're all going to be 9 feet no matter what.
Well, not to mention, I mean, we're near full build out. I mean, at all reality, if people want to do business in Port Orange, which I think is a good place to do business, you know, maybe your policy is not as important as what we have going here. We know what our residents want. We've been the way we've been for years. It's a reason why people want to live in Port Orange. So I'm not interested in lowering my standards.
So this particular one, I kind of figured would be a hard sell on the council where all 5 of us drive trucks. But, there's probably some interesting video footage out there at certain businesses of me being the little guy that I am trying to squeeze out of a truck in a parking space. Some of them are kind of tight. So I get it. I mean, very, very valid points. But let's just, anybody in the public want to speak to this? I was, come on, Robert.
Robert could fit his.
I was thinking Robert's going to get here and say, I want to see the mayor getting in and out of his truck in these 9 foot spaces. Go ahead, Robert. Welcome.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive, Port Orange. I do have a car. And it's only a Mitsubishi, a little Mitsubishi 3-cylinder Mirage. And I hardly use it, but I already have 2 dings on it.
It's not from my truck, I promise.
And so, I think you should leave it at 10, and if anything, stop giving variances for 9. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
I thought for sure he was going to come up here and say we need to all switch to e-bikes. So, anybody else in the public wish to speak? Come on up here. Welcome. That's okay. We're glad to have folks here that engage us here. So.
And I'm Patricia Miles, and I live at 1508 Eureka Palm Drive in Port Orange. And in listening to all of this, and of course, tonight I brought my cane because of the uneven floor, but as we get older, we have times when we have to either have canes or walkers or wheelchairs. And I know we have handicap spots at different places, but we run out of those very quickly. And it's easier for us, the seniors, to have that extra space. So I would appreciate your considering that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, back to council. Any other comments? I think I know where this one's going. The proverbial writing on the wall. We'll go ahead and take a vote on this one. Clerk, call the roll for ordinance number 2025-22.
Councilman Foley?
No.
Councilman Gilbert?
No.
Councilman Green?
No.
Vice Mayor Groves?
No.
Mayor Silver?
No. 5-0. We're going to leave them 10 feet. Go right ahead, my friend.
He did that one first because it was a sacrifice, so you'll support all the rest of it.
Yeah. All good. In all seriousness, these are the kind of things it's the responsibility of staff to bring this kind of stuff to us. So,
And we appreciate it.
Anyway, go ahead.
All right, we'll go on to the next one here. This one came from the state in terms of basically direction from a Senate bill that basically essentially states that for the subdivision plat and plans, those are to be approved now administratively, no longer come before public hearings then. So what this code amendment does is to revise the process for approving a plat is basically administratively, and to designate the staff member who has to sign off on the plat then. So it does those two items. It does not change any of the requirements for designing a subdivision. Still has to meet all those requirements there. Does not change anything. That just changed the approval process of not having to come before a public hearing.
And since Mr. City Attorney, did you want to weigh in?
Please vote yes on this one.
Yeah. So this is more of a ministerial type of obligation on behalf of our city to comply with state law. Anybody here want to make a comment on this one? No? Good. Anybody from the public wish to speak on ordinance 2025-23? We'll do our best to continue to comply legally. Back to council. Call the roll on ordinance number 2025-23.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Gephardt?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gross?
Yes.
Mayor Stillman?
Yes, we can do a 3-2, guys, as long as that one gets done. So, go right ahead. Ordinance number 2025-24.
Next one is about the LED signs. About 15 years ago is when we first introduced into the LED signs into our code. And it seems like every year we kind of, as technology increases, we're kind of going back every 5 years and kind of updating our codes there. Went from just having initially just the shopping centers being able to have the LED signs, so they advertise tenants. When we did the last sign code update about 5 years ago, we said that basically single commercial businesses could also have the LED signs. We've always had kind of a 60-second time period on there. And as we basically getting more and more inquiries about signs or people who have signs, the question comes up in terms of speeding up that display time period from 60 seconds on there to what other cities have. So we of course went back and looked at some of the other cities in the area have, and they have kind of a range between 5 to 15 seconds. So what we've recommended is a 10-second display time for an LED sign. Our code still prohibits the kind of the scrolling, the flashing, so that would still be in place. It can just be a simple transition. There, it would just, other than, so this code amendment would change the display time only from 60 seconds to 10 seconds for the LED signs.
Anything else?
That's all.
We'll start this in. Lance, go right ahead.
As a young lad, I was on the planning board when this first came in front of us.
Full circle.
So was I.
Yes, you were. But I thought that we set that rule for a reason, and that reason was like traffic and the interference of cars driving down the road, seeing something flashing too fast. Was this not a subject back then?
I think we talked about that then, and we put in those requirements about the no scrolling, no flashing as part of the message. It can just be a static message, which this would still be. It'd be basically just the static message, and every 10 seconds that message would change then. But you are correct, there was concerns with having the flashing and the scrolling display on those signs.
Non-stop.
Yeah, they're not there. That was put in place there, and I think we set that 60-second time there. Honestly, we didn't think it was going to improve 15 years ago.
Well, I think we
So
did
we
that
put the
because it was
60
gas
seconds in there.
stations. Gas stations were changing their price every minute. So I think that's why we had that.
But yeah, one of the keys was basically really on that one was really the scrolling and making sure that you didn't have the flashing, which we put in our code, and we've kept that in the code, and that would stay with this too.
So what's the difference between flashing and the 10 seconds?
But basically in 10 seconds it'd be the static message, and then it would basically transition to the new message then. This flashing would be kind of like the strobe lights on there, or kind of having the old Jumbotron thing where it shows the guy running across it then. That would be more the flashing and scrolling, which we basically prohibit, and was one of the issues that basically were cited in those studies as basically that is distracting to drivers.
So we're at 60 seconds now and you want to go to 10?
The proposal is 10 seconds for the message to change.
Is that what DOT uses for their electronic billboards on the
I believe theirs
interstate?
are either 8 seconds in the DOT uses.
And you've seen it when you drive down I-4 when they do those transitions.
No,
So
I'm
they
going
just-
too fast.
That's basically.
Another thing too, with most of our signs, basically the corridors that they are located on are arterial corridors where basically, Dunlawton, Clyde Morris, Nova. So the corridors where basically you are traveling at least 45 miles an hour then. So really the only time you're actually seeing that message change is if you're at a traffic light.
Okay. That's all I got. Sean?
So, yeah, I'm perfectly good with this, actually. I've come to, I didn't like it early on, and when, I remember when this debate came, I didn't want the scrolling and the flashing, and, but now I'm waiting for that next ad to come. Because I pay a little more attention to that, it just doesn't happen fast enough. So, 10 seconds, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I want to be a business friendly city, and if this is something that helps our businesses, if this is, I don't think this is a huge ask. I'm a little surprised that the new director of the Chamber of Commerce isn't here advocating for it tonight. We'll all follow up. Oh, okay. I'll follow up with him later. Tracy, Reed, anything?
I think it's just phenomenal. I mean, we came up and we asked about this a couple weeks ago, and have staff bring this forward to us. Thank you. For businesses, this is huge. And what it does for businesses, it will enhance and allow for plazas to be able to have more kiosks, to be able to maintain what a business is inside some of these strip malls, that you're not having to have these huge monument signs. You'll have a single sign and it flips every 10 seconds. It saves space, more green space at the same time, so they can be found. So,
Good points.
good idea.
Reed?
Only scrolling I'm worried about people doing or involving driving is people scrolling on their phones, not what's going on the signs.
Yeah.
No, I think 60 seconds seems extremely too long. I don't really have an issue with going down to 10. Yeah, as long as there's no flashing and scrolling, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's good for businesses and good for getting that information out there. I have one more thing, but I've dropped it out of my head and can't find it. So
We're going to come back in just a second.
all right.
Anybody from the public want to speak to it other than Robert? Want to come up? Nothing? All right. Anybody else? No? Okay, back to us.
So is this time debatable? I mean, is this,
Now I remember what it was.
is this time debatable? We're going from 60 seconds to 10 seconds? Can we go to 30? I mean, I'm just asking.
We can do whatever.
Well, I mean, I think we're going pretty extreme from
Can I
60 to
piggyback
10.
on that and ask a question?
Go ahead.
Because I was thinking about this. When we have events, the city will put the trailers up that have the LED signs. They'll be like fireworks, 4th of July, then, kind of like usually in front of Walmart. Do we know how fast those change when we set them up? Because they usually change message. I feel like they change about every 15 seconds. And to me, that was kind of the number I was circling if we're going to debate what the seconds are going to be. No answer? No idea?
I'm just curious if the number was debatable, but if you're
We
stuck on-
looked at kind of what other cities use, and also too, we kind of indicated the studies that we looked at too, and basically kind of went that middle point of that, which was that 10-second area.
I just think we should give our business owners the same opportunity. If we're changing our signs every 8 or every 10, then why shouldn't they be able to?
Well, and I think we should, depending on the business, they may still want to keep it at 15 or 20 or 30 seconds, and I want to give them some flexibility there too. And then other businesses may, like to Tracy's point, they may want that to change every 10 seconds. And while 10 seconds is a short amount of time, it doesn't take 10 seconds to look at most signs and go, oh, okay, I got that, and then it goes to the next thing.
Yeah.
So I'm okay at 10, but
I'm good with anything.
yeah. One more?
So I want to just talk about, this isn't for existing signs. This is actually for anyone that now wants to install a sign because it makes sense to them to have multiple messages every 10 seconds.
Yeah, this would basically be for existing signs could basically go down to 10 seconds per message then, because the code would be now 10 seconds. And then anyone who got a new sign would also have to follow this rule if it went to 10.
Okay. So like down on US 1 where there's multiple businesses located and they don't have these signs, they can start having these signs installed? And is there a certain size? Are they signs that could be in the window? I mean, are we opening up?
Basically, the only LED would be on the monument sign, and basically is regulated by 25% of the allowed sign area then. So
Okay, so all that stays the
Yeah, on
same.
Ridgewood, you'd have to be a 32 or 48 square foot sign, so the max you get is like a probably 12 square feet. I think one example on Ridgewood would be, I think it's the Eagles Club. It's on,
Yep.
on there. They have one that's on there then, and and I think, you know, Culver's is another example of why.
Culver's was the one I was thinking of.
And you're not gonna see a lot of these, because, you know, Ridgewood Corridor is a lot of mom and pop local businesses, and these signs aren't cheap. These signs that are gonna do this are considerably different than the standard static sign that doesn't have that kind of technology. But you're gonna see a few, and those folks down there could do this now anyway. They just could only change it every 60 seconds, so.
Cool.
All right, I think we're good here. Let's have the clerk call the roll on ordinance number 2025-24.
Just, sorry, just point of clarification. We're going with 10 seconds is what we're voting on?
That's the motion.
Yes.
Councilman Gopher?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
No.
Vice Mayor Kraus?
Yes.
Mayor Stillner?
Yes, 4-1. Let's try this one.
All right, see if we can go.
Ordinance number 2025-25.
So this one is something that comes up quite a bit in terms of as we are working with property owners who are looking to make improvements on existing homes and looking to build wooden decks on their home then. So the current code requirement that we have states that an elevated wooden deck, the setback for that is 5 foot from the property line, and then every foot that that deck is above 1 foot above grade is basically another 2 foot setback then. So the example that we have right here is basically a house here, which you can see the outline of the home, and then you can see the wooden deck that's proposed here. This is a 2-story wooden deck. So on the first floor is a wooden deck, and on the second, then they have it elevated 10 feet above the 10 feet, and they have a 10-foot deck on the second part, which you're seeing right here then. So this deck is technically, the floor of the deck is elevated 10 feet from the property line, or 10 feet from the ground. The way the code reads, this deck requires a 23-foot side setback from the lot line. Now, the homeowner could basically, essentially build a second-story room, or basically addition onto his house and put the deck on top of that house, and then that setback would be 7.5 feet. And we get quite a few inquiries about doing these projects, and once they find out, because the side setback for the deck, elevated deck is so much further than basically a residential, like doing a porch, I mean basically a screen room or a porch there, then they go with that option and put the deck on top of it then, or they scrap the idea. The other area that we have some problems with too is that more and more of our homes are basically being built on stem walls. So basically the home is sitting about 3 feet above the ground. And in cases where we have what we talked about are smaller setbacks then, where you have a 5 foot to 7.5 foot side setback, and they want to put a deck off the back of their house that is basically at the level of where you come out there then. Like in this case, 3 foot deck, 3 foot above ground requires a 9 foot setback, but you might have a home that has 5 foot setback or 7.5 foot, so that you're having to bring that deck in, but they come in, they want to build an addition onto their home, or a screen room, or a classroom, or like you can build 5 feet then. And that's where kind of the questions come in, is like, why can I build this type of structure and put a deck structure on top of it, but you won't let me build a wooden deck? And you know, we typically get quite a few of those that come in here. We've not had any variances come through. We usually have people either scrap the idea or they change it and basically go with an addition on the home then. So this code amendment would kind of put us more in line with the other accessory structures that we have in our code, which are all pretty much in terms of the setbacks required to be equal to what the building setback of the side structure, side setback is what the side structure is, so 5.5 or 7, and then equal to the rear setback then. And also too, the formula does get messed up quite a bit in terms of calculating that. I can admit when I first started, I probably screwed that up a few times on that then. So this would basically give us a more easily followed formula. So basically contractors or homeowners that are looking at our code can also kind of calculate what the setbacks might be if they want to do this type of improvement.
I'm gonna have to say that I learned something tonight, realizing that you're saying that we get that many people that are doing this, because I wasn't.
I think we start seeing more and
aware.
more on Riverside Drive, just
Sure.
because get the views.
Yeah.
But we are seeing kind of, you know, the decks, you know, and then with the new homes being built on there with the stem wall, we're starting to see more and more inquiries come along that corridor for those types of decks then.
All right, well, let's see what our resident contractor has to say.
I think it's a great idea.
It's the way to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Me too. Fantastic. Especially
Yeah.
elevated.
I
Back
just
25%.
think it's hysterical that, you know, what you just said as far as building the deck at a second floor height. got them to that other setback. You know, that's a oops.
All I could think is, as I was talking about this with Wayne today over lunch, is that the intention had to be that they didn't want people to be able to build onto a floor to be able to see like into neighbors' yards or something to that effect. But the code is outdated. It makes no sense. I mean, I think this absolutely it's a great idea. I will admit, as I've tried to make sure I understand this, so it's 7.5 feet side, that's per side, so from either side. Correct. But it does have to be 7.5 feet from both, and then but the rear is still 25 feet.
Yeah, they would basically it'd be the 25 foot then on the rear then.
That just seems excessive to me. That actually, I don't know why, and this was the thing kind of became the sticking point when I was talking to Wayne. Why is it okay to be 7.5 feet from the side from your neighbor's house, but you have to be 25 feet from the back of your property? Whoever wants to go for it.
You want me to answer that one?
I was going to say that.
The contractor.
Well, I mean, general rule of thumb, though, right, Tim, is that structure is a different structure, but then you would still have room to put a pool in behind that house in that 25 feet, and you could have a pool within 5 feet of the property line.
Yeah, all the cities I've worked in, it's fairly standard. The front and backyards are your big yards, your side yards are your small. So you have a big backyard so that you can put playground stuff and pools and trampolines and things like that. So, and park cars and driveways in the front, sides are always narrower.
Well,
just
and
everywhere I've been, that's the dimensional.
Well, and maybe it's just the fortunate, or the lot that I have. If you were to walk from my house to my property line in the back, I probably have all of 15 to 20 feet on the back of mine right now, so I could never build a deck back there at all because I'll never have 25 feet. And so I just don't know that that's 25 feet shouldn't also be looked at to be brought down just a little bit. If you can go 7.5 to the side, I don't know why you have to be 25 from the rear. I feel like we should allow our residents to have a little more flexibility on the rear as well and lower that number.
But they could always apply for a variance.
Always.
We're not going to approve one for you.
No, I'm
just telling you.
Every lot's different.
I don't even want a
Reed.
deck.
I mean, every lot is different, and every neighborhood's different as well. I mean, Sleepy Hollow might have been built with different setbacks.
That's true too.
Okay, so you got to go with whatever's in the zoning of that neighborhood when it was built.
Yeah.
Good point.
Also, on that one with the rear, basically the way we set it up too was we're keeping the formula there, and we're basically either use the formula or what basically the required setback of that zoning district is. So in terms of the rear yard, kind of in your case then, if you wanted to put one that's elevated 3 foot above the ground, then that would only be a 9 foot setback. We'd use whatever's less than. So you would not be required to get the 25 foot then.
No,
as long as you understand it, Tim.
Yeah. So, yeah.
As long as
the intent was basically kind of to your point. Then, if you had a backyard and you built your home to a 25 foot rear setback, then you're going to be like, hey, I've got no room to put this deck on here. Then,
right.
But if you wanted to put one that was 2 feet above ground, basically, then we basically wrote the setback. So basically, we could still use that current setback because the current setback would be more beneficial than using your setbacks for your structure. So we got the either or option in here, and we go with whatever's less than.
As long as it's pro homeowner, then I'm good for voting for it.
All right, anybody from the public wish to weigh in on this one? No? All right, back to council. Call the roll on, what was this one, ordinance 2025-25.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Gephardt?
Yes.
Councilman Green?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gross?
Yes.
Mayor Stiller?
Yes, 5-0. On to our only regular agenda item for the evening. Item 18, fund balance policy discussion. All right, so to kind of frame this one, and we'll get moving forward on this. So the city has a fund balance, and we, about 10 years ago, for the first time, we implemented a fund balance policy. I think back then, because my first year on council, my recollection was our fund balance was over 50%. And it was just time to establish a policy and a reason why to that. And so we did that, and we've stayed with that current policy all the way up until tonight. And we can stick with it if you guys want. So the purpose of this particular discussion is going to talk about specifically to that policy. Now, we're not talking about how to spend fund balance tonight or voting or on any of those kind of things. I know in the packet it's got some examples of things that you can do with it, which kind of will help us as we go through this discussion. But for tonight, the what we are focused on is do we want to change our policy, and what does that mean? I will let you know that in my discussions with the city manager, that the policy is done or has been done to this date by a percentage. That's how we set that policy. But in setting that, you don't really know what does that mean in real dollars, right? So we have unfortunately had a couple of very significant historic events, and now we have even a better opportunity to have a discussion in terms of real dollars. What does it really mean, so that you can say, okay, well, is 7 million enough to have in fund balance? Is 15 million what we need, based on what we have actually learned and based on our experiences, which I wish we had not ever had them. So I'm going to let the city manager, did you want to weigh in first, Wayne? Talk about what we're here and kind of frame this up a little bit, make sure we're all on board and understand what we're looking to do here tonight.
As the mayor pointed out, the GFOA, the financial people who tell you how you should run a city effectively want you to have some form of savings account off of your operating costs, no different you would at your own home. So you're always being told, make sure you've got some extra money for your mortgage, for your car payment, for your groceries, your utility bills, so that if something happens, you can carry on and operate in an emergency situation. This same thing, much bigger scale. They generally say about 2 months if you're not in an area prone to major disasters. That's how you get the 16.7, because it's 2 months divided by 12. The point is that the percentage helps you because your general fund operating costs change over time. And so we're in the ballpark of $60 million general fund operating. Our policy requires you to add transfers in there, so things that we transfer out for one-times are included. So we're working off of about a $67 million total, and that's where we get the 30 to 35 for us is currently real dollars, about $20 million to 24 million. So where we're at today, when we brought you the draft budget back in July, balanced at a 5.03 millage rate, council set max down at 5. When we started looking at how to get down to the 5, one of the things we did was look at fund balance and figure out, are there some things in there that we can do? What we had determined is that a few years back, the finance director at the time shifted our policy for how we pay for some of our public safety vehicles, and we were doing short-term financing for fire trucks and some police cars. Don't really have to do it that way. You don't save tons more money than you would keeping money in fund balance at the interest it earns. So what we have done to balance the budget for you is we're going to pay those off in cash using fund balance, which will and we also know when council sets max, most of the time the council is really asking us to find something a little bit lower than the max. So when we were looking at the fund balance and what to do, we can get it down to flat where it is right now at the 4975. By basically paying the debt on those trucks and those police cars. And that what it will leave you with is today, as we're here, we have an estimated fund balance just a little under 20 million. So it's right at your 30%, the bottom end of your threshold. So today you're sitting at, without going through the audited process of finishing this year and adding whatever will be not spent in this year's budget. So we've a little bit over a month left to go, and then that money will then go back into fund balance. But right now you're looking at about 20 million. From that, the other thing to frame from is what do we typically see spent in a case of an emergency. So we've had a number of hurricanes recently, unfortunately, going all the way back to the Matthew, Irma era and through. So what we found in the original 2 or 3 is that we spent about $7 million fairly quickly on the hurricanes. The bulk of that is debris removal. So about 4, a little over 4 maybe, is the cost of getting people in here to pick up all that trash off the street, haul it off, get rid of it. You spend between equipment, staff time, things like that, you get another $1 million or so. And then the rest of the funds are typically things that got beat up by the hurricane, and it takes a while to rebuild. So the Memorial Park, where we just redid the pier. So that's the Ian damage that we just did this summer. So that's the last that you usually see coming back. So if you have a $7 million hurricane, the 4.5, in recent years, they have been way better at getting it to us. So, those are people who've been around for hurricanes for 10, 15, 20 years. It could be 5 years or more before you saw some of your money back. Now that they basically monitor it, so when you go do debris removal, you have preset contracts, you have contracts on where to take it. The companies that come in have preset prices. They have a company that follows them around and checks everything they pick up and checks everything they dump. So that speeds up the process of getting your money back, because they're already kind of doing the things that confirm that they're not paying you for something that didn't get done. So that while it's a pain to do that, it has gotten our big bulk of our money back quicker. So we're now seeing this money coming back in under 2 years. Most of it is 15, 12, a little over a year. I don't think we've ever got it back in 12 months, but somewhere between like 14 and 16. You get the bulk of the money back. Within about 2 years, you're getting your personnel money, and then the projects just depend on how long it takes you to permit them and get them done and get them reimbursed afterwards.
Now, go back and touch base on the projects, because my recollection was the way it used to be, like you noticed, you talked about Memorial Park. So the way it used to be, you could expedite that, spend money out of your fund balance, and then file and wait on your reimbursement to come back. But now, aren't some of these projects, they're not allowing us to
If you
spend our
pay
own
for
money?
them first, they won't reimburse you.
Right. So
you have to get them approved. You will pay for them first.
Oh, yeah,
ultimately, but
Yeah.
you have to go through their process and have them approve them before. You don't want, if you spend the money on your own and then go, hey, we just fixed this for $2 million, can we get in your cycle to get reimbursed? They won't. But if you bring them along the entire way, so Cambridge is one of those projects. So we're designing Cambridge with a reimbursement from FEMA in mind. So that's part of what's making that take longer, is because we are making sure that every I is dotted and T is crossed, so that when that project goes forward and we spend our fund balance money and our capital money on it, FEMA will give us the money back. So that's how that works. You still pay it up front, but you definitely have to go with them in order to get any chance of getting it back.
So I would just offer, from a position of having been up here the longest, that a lot of this has definitely changed over the years. The rate at which we would get our money back has significantly gotten better and increased. We get things back a lot faster, like Wayne's talking about. 10, 11, 12 years ago, when I first got on council, we were still getting money back from things that happened when I was still a police officer. That's how long it was taken on some of these storms. But now that money comes back into the city much quicker. And then the change he noted there, I'm glad he talked about that, because that's different as well. So before, we were spending pretty much everything. We were outlaying that money to get things done, and then going through that process and hoping for reimbursement, which we usually did pretty well on that, but that process took a lot longer as well. So I just think it's important to, as we consider this policy, to know what that means. So Wayne, what else you got?
Other than we are also part of the state's FROC process, and I'm blanking now what ROC stands for, but it basically is a backstop financing mechanism, so that if you do happen to not have money, you can go get it at, was it zero or low interest? Zero interest loan. So you can go, instead of having to go to a bank and pay interest and borrow money like some people did during the other hurricanes, if things are really, really bad, we have never needed it and never come close. We have always been able to pay our own debts and cover this cost, but that is at least there and exists as a backstop through the state, that there's a program. So for everybody, just in the event you have 3 or 4 in 1 year, they have at least got a program as a backstop to help the local governments with some emergency funding.
And we also are a favorable city to loan money to, so we sit in pretty good standing with that. Reed, questions for city manager?
I don't have any questions for him.
Okay.
I understand what we're doing here.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Lance, questions?
I do. So Wayne, if I'm picking up what you're telling me is a storm costs us $7 million, but now because we're getting better getting reimbursed, it's only really going to cost us $4 million. Is that what you're saying?
It still costs 7.
Okay.
You just get your 7 back a lot faster than you used
Well,
to.
what does that have to do with this? What does it have to do with the fund balance?
This
So
is
we're
your
talking
savings
about
account.
the
You're using
overall-
your savings account. So
Taking it out.
you would normally use up, if you had 2 hurricanes in a year, you'd use 14 million, and it may be 5 years before you got it back. And your savings account would be 0. You'd have no money. So you can't really afford to be in a position where you've got 0 fund balance. It also affects your credit rating. If your fund balance gets too low, people don't want to loan you money.
That was gonna be my next question. Does it affect our bond rating,
It would, yes. If you go too low, it
depending
will.
on how much cash you have, correct?
Yes, that is clearly one of the things when we did the Parks bond that they looked at.
So you definitely don't want to go below the GFOA recommendation, for sure. That would not be favorable. We get dinged on an audit for that, guarantee it. The relevance to the storm thing is merely an example, because like when I first came on council, we first set this policy, we didn't have that. We didn't know, okay, well, if we have a Hurricane Ian, what can we expect to spend? So we were formulating a policy without knowing what that real dollar really meant. Now, unfortunately, you've had 2 historic storms in the last 3 years. We know what that number is. So when you say, well, how do I know if I need 20% or 30%? Well, now we can say, well, listen, if you had 2 Ians in the same year, you can plan on spending about $14 million.
Right, okay. Right. Because
And I forgot to say, Milton was a little bit less. Milton was under 6, so a lot of bad flooding, but I think some of it was we've been hit enough times that a lot of the debris from the tree, it wasn't a heavy windstorm, a lot of the debris wasn't there from the trees, and I think our people, after Ian, there was some decent resilience done individually, so we didn't pick up as much debris from the houses the second time either, so the total amount of debris removal was probably what lowered that cost down to
Well,
6.
and realistically, let's be honest, God forbid you had 2 storms in the same storm year. Your debris is still out there. You're picking up the same debris.
So Wayne,
You know,
so
That's what happened with Nicole
I'm
yeah.
just asking the question. So okay, so let's just say we got $20 million in the checking account, and storm comes, and we got to spend $6 million. We're gonna get some of that money back.
Almost all of it.
Okay, but you're gonna get it back. So I guess I'm just trying to. The fund balance does this as your money out, money in kind of reimbursement kind of thing. I guess does your fund balance fluctuate based on reimbursements, and you know what I'm guessing.
Well, go ahead. Do you want to?
So some of that will, if you're using it, let's just say you don't have a hurricane and you have $20 million in there, so you're going to keep the $20 million at the next year, but at the end of the year you have $220 million budget, you have 60 million, 70 million of it is general fund. So at the end of the year, vacancies in your big departments that are funded by general fund, so fire, police, parks, those vacancies, those dollars don't get spent. There's side dollars associated with them not being there, so there's uniforms, vehicle, other things, operating costs that don't get spent when there's vacancy. So at the end of each year, you never spend 100%. Most people do not budget to the 100, somewhere between 85 to 92 or so. So you're always going to have some rollover of unspent money. In the years past, some of the times where we had the really high fund balance numbers, you have 20 empty positions in the police department, 6 in the fire department, 15 in public works. You're putting $3 and $4 million into fund balance at the end of the year because it just didn't get spent. During the COVID years, we had a whole bunch of capital projects that were general fund capital projects. You saw this year when we looked at it, you had $10, $15 million in general fund capital projects. That money didn't get spent at all, so that rolled over as well. Now, if it's allocated to capital, it doesn't show as unallocated funds. So one of the things that's happened with us changing finance directors is you have different approaches to how they show the money. So the fund balance, the auditor is going to look at what it is at the end of the year and tell you what it is. But if a finance director has moved some of that money into a project, then it's not listed as fund balance, it's listed as allocated to a project. So in the past, we've had some of that money that we all knew, REC. When REC came through, there was REC money that was just left in fund balance. So a couple of the years when the fund balance showed really high, it was money that was going to go finish the REC project. It just happened to have been still showing in the fund balance. So it will fluctuate up and down depending on what you spend. If you budget $100, you only spend $90, $10 of it gets added to your savings account. But if the $5 of that $10 is really, you're going to have to go out and buy something with it, you really don't have 10, you only have 5, but it still will show is adding 10. So there's a lot of art to how fund balance gets done.
Okay, so then when we do annual budgets, do we budget a certain amount of money to go to fund balance?
No, you don't.
No.
We don't put a certain amount in savings account.
Not as long as you are meeting your policy. That's.
I got you.
If you were to
So you're
fall
not gonna
below the
keep any-
policy,
correct.
we would
I
have
got
come
you.
to you and said, get it back up there.
If I give
got you. Okay.
a very quick example, during the COVID time, we had a lot of vacancies in both fire and police and general employees. So as those salaries weren't spent, that money at the end of the year would get added to the general fund, and then we can find ways to expend it.
But you're gonna expend it when you hire them people.
Yeah, but that's the next budget cycle.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
so it's like a once, if you can
I got
imagine,
you.
like a once a year, whatever you didn't spend goes into this savings account.
Okay.
And then you spend it on other things that are one-time expenditures ideally.
Yeah. And keep in mind too, so historically, where has large amounts of money needed to be used? It's during storm seasons. And so that's really what this is mostly about. You
And
know?
fire trucks.
Right. So the other thing is keep in mind that there are ways for us to also react to making financial decisions. We're going to go to the budget. We're going to go through the budget cycle every year, guys.
Right.
Okay. So I mean, there are other ways to react. So really, what we the kind of the way I see to focus on this is getting our fund balance into a realistic perspective, so that there is money that's out there to be utilized that we can reinvest into our community, get caught up on some projects, and still feel very safe based on what we've seen historically, that we're making a good decision, but yet we're going to get caught up on some things and we're going to make some investments. And so that's kind of way I would recommend you look at it. You know, if you look on here, like Ormond carries 9.9 million. So we've got 24 million or 23.45 million roughly sitting in our fund balance compared to Ormond at 9.9 million. By the way, some of them don't actually have policies. This is just where they're at currently. So I remember watching an actual council discussion in Ormond. They use the GFOA minimum. That is what they actually will acknowledge is there's their thing. So they might be a little high at the moment, but their minimum is just to stay above that GFOA recommendation. So you look at New Smyrna, they basically have 18 million. Deltona, I'm not sure I understand the Deltona thing. They do a specific thing for hurricanes.
Two of them have a specific set aside for hurricanes, and then they have their other fund balance. And then they have a lot of money set aside in a savings account. Very large amount of money in a savings account.
Well, that's how we had this conversation.
That's that millage rate.
Yeah, we're going to move this forward, guys, I promise. But that is kind of how we had this conversation over 10 and a half years ago. With people were saying, what is all this money for? Like, what is it there for? It needs to be serving a purpose. If it's not serving a purpose, you need to create a policy. And you need to invest that money back into the community. So that's kind of the discussion to have with that. So, anybody have any more specific questions on what we're trying to do here? Sean?
So I think my conversation at our last meeting may have sparked this conversation here. Am I correct?
Well, it's actually a conversation we've actually had for a while.
Okay.
But yes,
Yes. Okay.
we need to get it going. We need to get the policy going.
Yeah, so right now we're at 30 to 35. If we went to 25 to 30, does that free up money to get the things that you just mentioned done, projects done? Because we're not obligated to be at 35%. We have the money above so if we obligated ourselves to be at 25 to 30, does that free up that money to get these things that are important done?
So any time, yes. So anytime we adjust this policy or we establish this a new policy tonight, anything that's over that will become now part of the discussion to say, okay, you have X dollars. What do you want to get done? What do you want to get done with it? And I will tell you, like these are some ideas, but these are not everything.
Right.
There's going to be a great discussion on that night. That'll be a good time.
Yeah.
But yes, so once we establish that policy, that will then dictate once they close out this year's fiscal year, right, Wayne? Step in if I'm saying this wrong. Close out this fiscal year, they will now be able to come back and say, okay, you have this much over your fund balance policy. Give us direction. What does council want us and expect us to do to invest this back into the community? Get some of these things off of our list that we want to work on.
The current policy says 30 to 35. If you go below, you have, I think it's 3 years to come back and you have to develop a plan to get it up to the minimum. If you go above, the current policy says take the above and spend it on general fund capital. So that's the current approach is what we do is like if you were to say tonight you want to go to 25, so you drop it down to about 17 million, that's 3 million more than we bring you a budget and you adopt a budget at 4.975 millage. That's going to be 3 million above what you're set at. It's completely your call as council, as the mayor said. What do you want us to do with that 3 million? You can leave it in the fund balance. You can tell us to allocate to a capital project. But it's going to be up to you to decide where you want that money to go. We'll bring you a lot of ideas and our recommendations, but you'll get to decide.
And you're wanting this to be a range? Like this, or ideally the fund balance is not a number or a hard number, it's more of a range?
You definitely need a minimum. The top helps in that it gives us an idea when we're too high, which was, like the mayor pointed out, if you're 30 to 35 and you're seeing 40s on a regular basis, that's the need for a conversation.
Okay,
There ought to be a really good reason that you drop $6 or $7 more million into fund balance. There's got to be some kind of conversation to be had. That's the only reason for the top, is just to make sure you're not building it up to that huge number.
Okay.
So I will just, so I'll say this and frame it, because I can't make a motion when you guys will have to put this forward, but, so I'm good at 22% being our minimum and 27 being our max. And the reason being, 22% puts us 5% above GFOA recommendation on the minimum and 10% on the max. And historically, looking at what that equates to in actual dollars, even if we're at the minimum with $14 million in the bank, we've never spent anything close to that on a major catastrophic storm. So I feel very good with that. I feel like what the city manager just also spoke about, that, you know, hey, if for whatever reason this year it's the year to do it, we need to go down to that minimum, then we'll build back to be in the middle part of that range, or what we need to do. If for some reason the unthinkable happens and we go below that minimum, then we know that what we got to do is over the next 3 years, we got to build back to get back within our policy. So that's kind of the way I look at that and think about that. So
one of the things that I want to talk about is the GFOA is 11.2, that's 16.7%. That's 2.5 months of running funds to function the city, correct?
It's operating fund.
Okay, operating funds is 16.7, that's what the GFOA says that we need to have. So that is the bare bone minimum. When you go in there and you look at 2 hurricanes back to back, $7 million apiece, and it takes the government 1.5 years to fund us back, and granted, you talked about it, saying that it takes 4 and 5 years at some points, and now we've sped the process up 1.5 years. 2 hurricanes, that's $14 million. You take $14 million and you look at the GFOA, it says it's approximately $25 million, which is above the 35. I'm not saying we need to be above the 35, but you do need to be sensible about having the 2.5 months GFOA and 1 major storm, $7 million. If you look at that, that's 18 million, that's 27%. That is keeping our GFOA in line and 1 major storm cleanup. And then hopefully we get repaid in a timely manner before, if and when another storm comes.
what's the GFOA money for?
That's the function of the city without having the storms. We're talking about...
No, let me just interject. That's not correct. The fund balance, the reserve for that, is for having those storms and critical incidents and unexpected. It doesn't have anything to do with the day-to-day operations. The
Okay.
operating fund stays the same. You still function the city, you still have your salaries for your employees and all those day-to-day things. So it's the reserve fund.
So you're saying 14...
And I apologize for
you're saying
interrupting you. I just want to make
You're
sure.
saying 14 million then?
Yes.
For 2 storms?
Yeah, what I'm saying is conceptually, we're having a policy discussion. What is this money for?
Well,
and historically, it is for storms. We don't have, look, you've got 1 major bridge. Well, we have 2, but 1 major bridge, it's not ours. So if you had a collapse, gosh, you're making me do this, man. But if you had a collapse on the Dunlawton Bridge, that's not ours. We don't pay for that. That's somebody else. So a lot of the major high expensive infrastructure that you have in this municipality, it is not ours.
it's not ours, but you still have those citizens on the other side of the river we have to take care of.
We don't, not with our money.
It's going to take how long to get the money here?
We
for us to
won't use
take
any of
care
that money, Tracy, is what I'm saying. That's what, and I think that's important to make sure we all understand. We don't use this money for that. We use this money to pick up debris. Historically, that's what we've used. Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, have we had something of a brick and mortar, concrete, high infrastructure expense other than docks and?
We've had boat ramps and docks,
ramps
parks
and-
damage. That's
Right.
the majority. We've had floods in our utilities but they're not paid for out of general fund. So the general fund stuff is principally our parks, and you've seen that kind of damage coming before you. The other things, like the worst case scenario is you get a hurricane, pick up all the debris, and then another one comes. The 2 times we've had dual hurricanes, and so the first year was Ian with Nicole right behind it, and then last year we had Helene, and then we had Milton behind it. Helene, everybody forgets because it was a bigger North Carolina problem. We had a bunch of limbs on the ground. We had people yelling at us up to Milton, everything's going to flood because you haven't picked up all this trash. We were heavy duty in it. So the debris removal for back-to-back storms is lumped in as one cost. So we did, certain things got broke in Nicole. So Cambridge failed in Nicole. It did not fail in Ian. So those are separate costs for those 2 storms as far as the reimbursement. But the debris removal for both of those years was one lump sum. So the 7 million and the 5.8 or whatever the Milton was, that's debris removal for both storms together. And then the separate part is the repairs, like Cambridge being separate from the other. So
$12 million on the 2 storms.
the worst you can do is if you have a storm in August, get it all cleaned up, and you have a storm in November, and you have to do it all over again. That's your full. That's going to be your gigantic cost. But if you're doing them all together,
Yeah, but you're talking $12 million, 2 storms.
And I don't think we've ever
I think
cleaned
we
up
just
the
voted on a boat dock and ramps and everything under the bridge to be redone at, what was that, 1.6 million?
yeah.
Okay, so we got 1.6 million. Took us $1 million to get Memorial Park reset back up, so right now we're at 14.6 without any buildings being touched if we have damage inside our buildings.
Could I just ask what you're thinking as far as a range, out of curiosity?
My range should be 25% minimum.
25 to 30 then? So
If you're doing a
I'm-
range,
yeah,
25 to 30, yeah.
I was just curious.
And so did we spend money out of our reserve fund for the memorial docks, or did we have to sit and wait until that federal
So
money
we
was coming?
transferred fund balance to pay for it, and then the money comes back in.
But we couldn't do anything until the federal dollars came in, or
No,
or
we
approved or something, right?
We had to pay
What's
up
the deal?
front, but we had to get the authorizations.
Right, okay, all right. So that money didn't go out right away. And that's the other thing too, is when we talk about infrastructure versus property investment, in my mind, that dock going across a retention pond is not critical infrastructure, and if it needs to wait, it waits. So do boat ramps, by the way. Critical infrastructure, to my mind, buildings, roads.
Yeah,
I
but
don't think we own any bridges.
We did get
But, you know,
lucky, $12 million being spent out. We had no buildings damaged.
Right, right.
What's a building cost? Lance?
Well, after a hurricane, a lot more than it does now.
Okay, so my question is you go in there to a policy, you better make sure the policy's high enough to take care of parks, recreation buildings, this building that we're sitting in right here, police department, fire department. There's quite a bit of buildings that can have some major damage. We got lucky enough that it was, don't want to say it, stormwater. But it could have been stormwater and wind blowing roofs off a ton of buildings here. And then we'd have had a whole different story on what this dollar amount would have been. It wouldn't have been 12 million.
But Tracy, these buildings are insurable. Debris is not.
They are. And how's
Debris
that
is not.
working with a lot of customers right now trying to get the insurance policy paid out in a timely manner? This is what the fund balance is for us to move forward with daily life to get things done until we get reimbursed.
I'm agreeing with you.
So if we
I
don't
just
get
want you to know.
reimbursed anytime soon and we run dry, we have to go get a loan. That's
So-
what we're talking about here. You run this account dry, the city has to go get a loan. Granted, we have that now available with FROC to be able to do that, but it's the process to be able to do that, should you have to. And I know it sounds like a lot, we're talking about literally, you were talking 22%, I'm talking 25%, we're talking $2 million.
And currently we're at 30 to 35.
Correct, but what we're talking about between me and Scott right now is $2 million.
And I get it. And here, I don't want to interrupt you because I don't know if
No,
you're
go
finished
ahead.
or not, but I talked to Wayne and Robin about this today. The storms that we had, and I've been in Florida my whole life, grew up in South Florida. These weren't hurricanes. I mean, they were once a hurricane, but by the time they got to us, they weren't giving us what a hurricane gives us. We talked about it earlier tonight. We have not had a direct hit from the Atlantic with a real hurricane. Hurricane Andrew, yeah. You know, we've had, Francis was hit, I think, further south. We have not, this region has not felt 150 mile an hour winds. And that's what I've witnessed all over. You see what happens when that kind of wind hits. We had flooding in homes because of the large amounts of rain. We had debris because we had 65 to 75, maybe high 90 mile an hour winds recorded for Hurricane Charlie. We have not been hit with a major hurricane that's sitting off our coast right now. We are so lucky.
Yeah, we're blessed.
But when one does hit, 7 million, that's nothing. You can triple that probably. You might even quadruple that. The amount of debris that will be, because it won't just be trees. It'll be houses. And I'm not talking the interior homes. So I want to reduce it, but I'm more in line with the 25 to 30. So if something like I just mentioned does happen, we're well prepared. But I do want us to start focusing on things that are already broken. And I don't know how this all works, and I'm learning, but there's things that just are not acceptable. So if this frees up money at the end of the year to fix those things that are unacceptable to me, I think that's what I want to make sure we're focusing on. Like, you know, we talked about it at the last meeting.
Yep,
It's just-
absolutely.
So, but that's all.
And the other thing, that, in all great points, this is why this is a discussion needed to happen tonight. So, having been part of a massive disaster response, I can tell you that your municipal fund balances they won't put a dent in it. That's where you're going to see massive response, like they saw in Andrew down in South Florida, where the state of Florida and FEMA is coming to town, and your city hall can go to the ground. There's nothing in fund balance that's going to help you with that. You're going to be looking for state and FEMA resources that are immediately coming. And I will tell you, I don't know that there's anybody that does it better than the state of Florida. When Governor DeSantis sees a city or a county or an area that has over and above the normal, this was really bad, the response is massive. And the money is there, and they will support those communities and things like that. So I don't necessarily worry too much about that. Your city may not be the exact same it was for the next 6 to 12 months, but I know that stuff does come, and the critical things to support your community are going to be there, and you're going to have a reasonable fund balance, and that's realistic. That's how it works. You know, if we start looking at having a fund balance to be able to replace municipal buildings on our dime in that kind of short time, you're not going to get there. So, what do you got, Lance?
I guess
And we'll hear from
the
the
only
public
one
here in a
thing
second.
I really want to ask,
Stan's about out of his seat.
Wayne, is from a fund balance standpoint, what does it do to our bonding and our financial? I would be curious to know that implication. If we drop down in the savings account, is that going to affect our ratings?
I don't know that I don't know well enough to say exactly what number would put you there.
Okay.
Definitely going below GFOA would. I don't know that something above it would. There are a bunch of factors that they take into account. So when we just went through a re-rating, and they looked at a bunch of things, and it's one of the factors. It's definitely important that you have that, and that you have at least the GFOA, but I couldn't tell you whether or not 17 million or 18 million is going to make a difference. There's too many other factors
I'm just
involved.
curious to know if it does.
So I had this conversation with Zach many years ago, and during one of our audits, and my recollection was, is he said, listen, you can't go below GFOA. You're just not doing that.
Oh yeah.
But you need to have a policy. You need to adhere to and follow your policy. And if you're doing that, then you're acting reasonable, and your city is going to be looked upon favorable. It's when you start doing things outside of that norm, like saying, okay, we're going to go down to 8% or 10%, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. And then he always told me, he said, being a coastally oriented community, it is reasonable that you need to be above the minimum for GFOA. So that's kind of the concept. Now, he's not going to tell us what to be at. That's our decision to make, but that's kind of what the...
So where are we going with this tonight?
We need to set our policy. Either we're going to leave it where our policy is, which is currently 30 to 35%, or you guys are going to make a recommendation to change our policy and give our staff and say, hey, this is our policy. This is the minimum. We don't want to be below this. This is our maximum. We don't want to be above this. And then at the end, so we'll establish that policy tonight. After the end of the fiscal year, they're going to come back and go, okay, here's what the real numbers mean, and then we'll have another really lengthy discussion, I'm sure, as to, you know, they're going to bring back the dollars and say, okay, these are the real dollars. You have $4 million. How do you want to reinvest this back into the community? And you can use that $4 million and still stay within your policy. And by being in percentage, it probably gives us a little bit of wiggle room because you can be between the two parameters. You don't have to be at the maximum. We certainly won't want to go below our minimum. So,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
I can go after public comment.
yeah, let's get some public comment real quick.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody other than Stan want to? Come on, I know you want. You got some wisdom to impart on us. Welcome. We moved you to the edge of the seat with this discussion, man. I thought Robert was going to push you. Go ahead.
Didn't take much.
Yeah.
Stan Schmidt, 5574 Trailside Drive. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. One of the things that people get confused about with fund balance is that it is not a cash account. There is no account in your SunTrust, I think is where you're at, Truist, whatever it is. There is no account that is sitting there with checks there you can write checks on. It is really just a factor of what is left over when your assets and you subtract your liabilities, that's your fund balance. Now, a lot of it in government tends to be cash, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And you mentioned what does it do to your financing? It does have an impact. The other thing you have a problem with is insurance. When I was on the school board, you know, our biggest problem is we've got a lot of buildings out there, and we couldn't get insurance. And so we had to rely on our fund balance and on FEMA. So we could take that money to get the buildings back in place because we couldn't stop. We had a place to put those kids. So we had to fix the building. So for the school district, it was important that we had to have that so we could do it. Now the interesting thing is if you look at the school districts, their fund balance tends to be a lot less than this. And we were always getting dinged by the auditors going, hey, this isn't great. And of course, we really weren't in the position where we were borrowing any money. Now you guys, it depends on what you want to do in the future. Do you have projects that you know that you're going to have to borrow money for? We've got a fire truck for, what is it, $400,000, more than that? It's a two-year lead time before you even get it. So you can order it now, you don't have to write the checks for a couple of years. Or maybe you have to give them a little bit.
No, we
down
paid for
payment,
it up
whatever.
front.
Yeah, we got to pay for it up front.
Oh, really?
And then we wait 3 years, I believe, right?
That's in their fund balance.
3 years.
That's in their fund balance. So that's the biggest thing is, remember, the fund balance is on your balance sheet. It's on your assets. Assets, liabilities, fund balance are all there. Your income and your expenses are on the income statement, P&L, okay? When you're doing your budgeting, you're looking at your P&L. This is how much money we've got coming in this year. This is how we're going to spend it. And the interesting thing, if you pull out your financial statements, if you look at them, it starts off with the beginning fund balance, adds in the income, subtracts the expenses, and then it has the ending fund balance. So the change in what you do, and this always amazed me because I had school board members going, yeah, we have a balanced budget. And I go, we really don't. we're bringing in 100 million, well, whatever the number is, 100, we're spending 115. And the reason it's balanced is because we have the beginning fund balance and the ending fund balance, so that changes in the balance. That's what you have to look at. So I would challenge you to go back and look at the financial statements to kind of get an idea of what's going on. Back in the old days, and this has changed now, when they used to have the CAFR, and now shifted the numbers around. In fund balance, you used to have unrestricted fund balance, temporarily restricted fund balance, and permanently restricted fund balance. So a temporary restricted one would be, let's say you ordered a bunch of police cars and you weren't going to pay for them for 6 months. That would be in the temporarily restricted fund balance. If it was unrestricted, there's nothing there, you can do whatever you want to with it. So it's there for you to play with. But it
You may
does-
want Linda to help, because this is not how the city, everything's not exactly the same.
Right.
But if we go too deep down an accounting lesson, you should probably hear it from your finance director.
We have them? Sorry.
We do.
Okay.
Thank you, Stan.
All right. that's
Anybody
it.
else
Thank you.
anybody else from the public want to weigh in? No? All right, back to council. Did you want the finance director to weigh in on anything, or?
Only if you have
No?
questions. I mean, we covered it
All right.
generally.
No, I think I'm good. Okay, back to council. Gentlemen,
All right,
let's get this wrapped up.
okay. Just so I want to make sure I understand one thing, Wayne, before I start talking over here. As far as fluctuation goes, this is the unmarked funds. So this is money that is not set aside for anything. That is what this is. Because I know there were years where we saw extremely high numbers, but it didn't change this percentage base. It was just because we didn't write the check yet, etc. So
That's how the policy is written.
Right.
It's supposed to be for anything you do not have allocated to anything specifically. Whatever word people choose to use.
absolutely. All right, thank you. I like that everyone up here seems to be in agreement. We need to do a percentage, not a dollar amount, because
Totally.
the dollar amount scared me when I thought someone was going down that direction. My hesitancy as far as this general fund conversation as to lowering it is just, it is unforeseen, right? Yes, we're saying a storm and we're thinking about that. It's what other things could happen? What other storms could be on? God, that's the worst analogy. What else can be on the horizon that we aren't seeing that could cause us to need to dip in for money in order to keep the city functioning? And I'm not very concerned about lowering this at all. In fact, I'm pretty sure I said this before that I thought we need to do this, especially now knowing that we have FROC available with 0% interest in the event we do need to borrow money. That is a tool that was not here when I first arrived on council. It certainly wasn't here when this policy was set in 2015, and we're members of that now. So that gives me even greater confidence to go lower on that. Where I'm at, and I don't know if Mayor, if you're ready for a motion or not, but I'm ready to make one.
Right ahead.
I would like for us to adjust our general fund policy to range between 22 and 27%. I like those numbers. 22% right now is over 14 million. God forbid that's 2 storm cleanups. Like even if it was back-to-back years, 27%. It gives us some range to be in. I don't want to come up with just a single number. That's 18 million. I feel really good about being there. So my motion would be to change the policy to be a range of 22 to 27%.
You have a motion on the floor for a change in the policy to have a 22% minimum with a 27% maximum as our policy. Do we have a second? Anyone make a second? All right, we've got to have a motion and a second to make a vote, guys. So we have no seconds of that motion.
I'm close to you, Reed. I mean.
Hang on. We got a motion on the floor. So we don't have a second, right? All right, so that motion dies. Go ahead, Jason.
So I'm close to you, Reed. I was thinking 25 to 27, having a tighter range. It gives us 2% fluctuation in there. So my motion would be from 25 to 27% is what I would look at.
We have a motion on the floor for a range of 25 minimum to 27% maximum. Do we have a second? Going once, going twice. All right, that motion will die on the floor. Why don't you take a stab at it, Sean?
Everyone gets a turn.
I'd like to make a motion that we leave it as it is.
We have a motion on the floor to leave it with a 30% minimum and a 35% maximum as our current policy dictates. Do you have a second? Guys, I can't help you out here. You're going to have to make motions and seconds to even have a vote, and further discussion. But all right, so that motion will die on the table for lack of a second. I just want to clarify something before I come to Sean or whoever else wants to try to make another motion. The the dollar amount thing was just to give you an idea of what that number actually represents. So I do agree that I think we need to stick with percentages.
Okay.
You know.
Sorry, I
And in concept-
misunderstood that.
And it's no, you're good. And in concept, guys, so keep in mind, this is about expectations and realistic versus unrealistic. And there's this concept of stockpiling taxpayer dollars that can become very unrealistic. Saying you're taking my taxpayer dollars, you're not investing it in my community, you got it stockpiled over here and you don't even know what you're doing with it. And so that's the concept that I think we need to be aware of and avoid. So these are taxpayer dollars that need to be either invested or we need to adjust what we're doing and roll that back, so to speak. No pun intended, but you know what I'm saying? Like we that's what this is really about. Because without a policy, it gets out of control. It's unrealistic. And that's how we got to having a policy discussion 10 years ago. And we're just here tonight to say, hey, do we need to adjust it? How has it worked out? How has it shaped over? Because we've had 10 years now of having this policy, and we know what we've seen. We've seen a lot of storms. We've seen the use of it. We've seen the recovery of it. We see it still get above the maximums, and us having to bring it back in perspective. So just keep those things in mind.
Mayor, I'll make another motion. Let's go for a range of 23 to 28%. Just trying to circle around. It seems like everyone talked about 25% being around that number, so that keeps 25% in play.
I'll second that.
All right, you have a motion and a second for a minimum of 23% with a maximum of 28%. Is that your motion and your second?
That was my motion.
You have a motion and a second. Discussion. Tracy.
I'm okay with that.
You're in there?
Your 3% inflation is, just so you guys know, is just shy of $400,000. We talk about 3% being the magical number. As things increase, these storms are going to increase in cost to us.
Well,
So
that's
going
keeping
down
this
is
a
gonna be bad.
percentage-based policy. Then that's going to take that always into account,
Yeah.
right? Lance, comment? Sean?
No comment.
No, sir.
And I've got no comment. We have a motion and a second. Public comment on the motion. Back to council. Seeing none. Anything else? Clerk, call the roll on a motion and a second for a 23% minimum fund balance and a 28% maximum for our policy. Keeping the policy, the rest of the policy stays the same, that if we fall under the minimum,
3 years.
3 years to bring that back into perspective. Okay.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Gifford?
Yes.
Councilman Gray?
No.
Vice Mayor Grimes?
Yes.
Mayor Sill?
Yes, 4-1, and that will be our policy moving forward until.
Just want to help clarify that the policy is structured as an administrative policy of the city manager. We have just historically come to you, so I just wanted to make sure Matt and I were talking about how to make sure we get this formalized correctly. So that'll be I'll take that policy and make the update based on council's direction.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And then the really interesting discussion will be coming later, for sure.
Yeah.
So, but good stuff. Good job tonight, guys. These are not easy. And so I appreciate all of the angst and the conversation and the questions and all of that for policy like this. Item number 19, council committee reports. First Step Shelter, Councilman Sean Gifford.
So I hope you're comfortable. It's going to probably take about another hour or two.
I got another thing.
First Step Shelter is doing very well. They are actually on September 21st inviting the public to come out to First Step Shelter to celebrate the fact that they have placed their 1,000th person who was once without a home is now have shelter and has a place to live. So that's good news there. Amazing things happen out at First Step Shelter. It's not for everybody, but it is certainly a step for the people who need it. And I think that's the important thing to know. There are a lot of people that probably never want to go there, that probably enjoy the way they live out on the street corners, living that life. But there are people that are doing everything they can to find shelter, their own shelter, and a place they can call home. And this has been helping them. So they're celebrating that on September 21st, which would be nice to have everyone there if they could. Also, Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce, a couple weeks ago, their executive director resigned. And most of you all know that our former mayor, Don Burnett, was hired to be our new CEO. and that's very exciting. Having someone who with local knowledge, a collaborator, and someone who just loves local business. I think he'll be a huge asset for the future of the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber. And they are having an event here tomorrow night at 4 o'clock at Lakeside Center. It's our annual business expo. Will double as their business after hours as well. So if you can go over there and support those businesses, that'd be wonderful.
4 to 7, right?
Yeah, 4 to 7 at the Lakeside Center. That's it.
Don's doing that for nothing, huh?
Anything?
I also had the fire pension quarterly
Yeah, go ahead.
meeting, so if I could just give that report to you guys. That was last night. I wanted to let you know that for the quarter, the fund was up 6.8%, which puts it fiscal year up 4.7, and on the 1 year, it's up 10.2, which means the fund's value currently has 50 million and some change net of fees. So seeing some improvements there. I want to also let you know that we did have a discussion that'll continue in 3 to 6 months about lowering the expected rate of return. FRS currently is expecting 6.7, and currently we're at 7.25 on that plan. And as we reduce that number, we're talking about a glide scope or a glide path down. Don't want to hit that all at once, because as the pension board lowers the expected rate of return, the city's contribution as a percentage of payroll is going to increase, and that will be a budget item that's going to affect our numbers. It's something that needs to be done, though, because if you are too high from FRS, if you're because they're expecting 6.7, they want to know why you're so much better at investing than they are. And you have to explain that if you start to get too far away from where their number is. So we need to start working our way down. The board and I, the conversation was generically, we want to do that gradually so as not to have any sticker shock to the city budget, which I appreciated everyone's conversations in that yesterday. That won't even be something that takes action for another 3 to 6 months, but it sounds like it'll be moved nice and slowly down and eventually working probably towards 7.1, if not 7% flat.
And on that note, this is probably a discussion we need to have the finance director present one night, because this is a concept that all of the pensions are looking at. And so it's not just one pension fund. So it's all three. Everybody's trying to bring that number down, which means the city's contribution cost goes up. We need to know impactfully and strategically, how do we really want to do that over the three plans? So, if you take too big of bites of apple all at one time, it can hurt.
Well, and I think it's our responsibilities as the members of this council who serve on those pension boards, because council does not set those rate of returns. We have no say in that policy as this body, but each one of us as representatives on the pension boards do have a say.
Right.
And we need to make sure we're doing our part to kind of just educate and inform what the impact would be to the city, because a large jump would result in I'm talking a multiple. Last night, the difference between 7.25 and 7 is $2 million to the city's budget annually. So these are very important conversations, and we have some great people serving on our pension boards who are really putting in the homework. So we got to make sure that we are on our respective boards just explaining where we're at, and I think they're willing to work with us. At least everyone on the fire board was last night.
Well, I'm sure, but that's why I say, we need to collectively have this discussion, so that as we all serve on these different boards, we can carry this back to say, hey, look, this is, where we, and our finance director has a say on all these boards. They need to be part of the discussion to say that's just not going to work if you go too aggressive, or you're not going aggressive enough, or whatever those things are, because ultimately that's where the dollars are coming from. And so we have to have that discussion and do that. So at some point, Wayne, that's probably going to be pretty relevant for us to kind of circle that, bring that before all of us, so we can kind of better understand what we're trying to do with all the different plans. So, anything else to come before us tonight? Thank you guys. Great job tonight. Have a good night.